People living in the high courts of Avalon don't spend a single second thinking about the souls rotting in the abyss. That's a classic line from Barnaby the dwarf. Deep in the shadows, a young man whispers a single desperate vow. He has to go all the way, no matter what. He scratches at his skin as he speaks, a nervous habit, because when you're trapped in hell, you spend every waking moment dreaming of paradise. The spectral message floating before him is clear: reach the very edge of this twisted realm. He's lost, drained, and honestly, he has no clue why he's doing this until his body finally gives out from exhaustion. And there it is again. That same recurring dream he used to have while dozing off in the back of the royal carriage. Suddenly, a piercing light cuts through the dark, leaving him wondering how he even survived 10 years alone in that damp cavern. The only thing he had to keep him company, an ancient codex of celestial night arts. Then came the ultimatum. If he ever wanted to see the white cliffs of home and his family again, he had to conquer this world completely. Finally, the notification pings. The tutorial is officially finished. Our hero finally opens his eyes. He's actually crying because he made it. He finally made it. But when he steps through the rift, he realizes with a sinking heart that this isn't home at all. Turns out that was just the prologue. Pure despair hits him like a warhammer. He can't wrap his head around why this is happening to him. 10 years, 10 long years of fighting just to get back to his kingdom. Suddenly, a voice cuts through the silence, calling out to him. A man appears, claiming he heard the boy and came to investigate. He says he wanted to show mercy, but his family is starving in this wasteland. He doesn't want gold. He wants the boy's flesh. You can see the raw terror in his eyes as a rusted blade clatters to the ground. Our hero stands there, breathing, blaming the man for forcing his hand. His mind is just a chaotic mess of guilt and survival. Right then, a glowing message pops up. Combat mastery level increased. Even in the middle of a tragedy, he's hitting new heights of power. It's sick, right? The protagonist actually starts to find the irony hilarious, laughing uncontrollably in the middle of the carnage. The very second he saw that notification, it all clicked. That night's codex was his only way out. To return to his world, he had to grind until he reached the absolute maximum level. Fast forward to the present. A squire sprints toward his grandmaster. Our hero is standing over a defeated warrior, casually asking which generation of order leader he's supposed to be. With a cold sword pressed to his throat, the man gasps that he is the 8th generation sword sovereign. Apparently, our boy has already dismantled the 6th and 7th generations of this entire knightly order. He actually thinks it's pretty cool that they keep coming back for more. Then, with one swift strike, he ends the duel for good. One of the followers lunges forward, screaming about revenge, but our hero just scoffs. Someone from a rogue order shouldn't be talking about honor or vengeance. Before the kid can even react, the protagonist has him by the face. Brave, the hero admits. The boy is frozen, unable to move a muscle as a massive barrier of pure energy erupts around them. The sheer scale of his power is monstrous. After the flex, the hero tells the boy to come find him again once he's actually worth fighting. He just wants their next match to be fun, you know. And just like that, he's the new sovereign of the order. Sadly, that last, Grandmaster, was a total letdown. Our hero is bored out of his mind and has no clue how to entertain himself anymore. It's getting so dull he's actually considering forming his own elite squad of legendary masters just to spice things up. He opens his eyes and stares at the horizon. He's been living this nightmare for 140 years now. In the beginning, home was everything. Now, he can't even remember what his own family looked like. Paradise? That's a myth. This hellish existence is the only reality he knows, and his patience has officially run dry. And then the message finally appears. Against all odds, he's hit the level cap. Max level achieved. The divine restriction is lifted. The system announces he's returning to Earth. After a century and a half, it's actually happening. He finds it almost funny. Now that he's completely given up on hope, the powers that be decide to show pity on him. Honestly, these entities are probably just playing with him like a toy. Regardless, he's officially reaching the power of a deity. The weird part, he still feels human. He still has desires and rage. He wonders if he's always been this full of raw emotion. It's been so long that his family is almost certainly gone. The urge to return home has pretty much evaporated. The only thing left fueling him is the cold, hard need for revenge. The message asks one last time, "Do you wish to return?" He wants blood. He wants the person who ruined his life. His hatred is so intense that the forest around him literally explodes from the pressure. Whoever they are, wherever they're hiding, they're dead. He's going to make sure of that personally. A blinding light consumes the entire area. 140 years later, he's finally going back. The year is 2011, London, just before the Great Calamity. A radiant woman speaks, warning that the days of nightmares are almost here. Right on cue, a massive rift tears open in the heart of the forest. She claims humanity has to evolve or die. On the other side of that gate, thousands of glowing red eyes are waiting for their turn to strike. A mysterious woman warns that one should never squander the gifts of fate. Nearby, a weary traveler mutters that it is finally time for 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 to make his return. The Kingdom of Albion, year 1525. Deep within the cursed Bloodfang Woods, a pack of monstrous shadow wolves is relentlessly hunting a terrified young man. An archer lets fly a desperate technique, but then pure magic rains down from the sky, barely snatching the boy from the jaws of death. Their savior is the legendary commander Catherine Solis. She is relieved to have made it in time, but the situation is grim. They have to retreat immediately. But disaster strikes in a heartbeat. While he is distracted, a wolf lunges from the shadows, and even the commander is too slow to stop it. He is only the first victim. It turns into a total massacre. Catherine watches in horror as her elite knights are torn apart by an endless tide of fur and fangs. Her mana is hitting zero. She knows the truth. If they stay another minute, none of them are making it out of these woods alive. Through the blood and the chaos, she sees one of her men, 𝒂𝒏𝒐𝒕𝒉𝒆𝒓, deserting the line. She screams his name, but she is buried under a mountain of wolves. Everything is spiraling out of control. Meanwhile, 𝒂𝒏𝒐𝒕𝒉𝒆𝒓 is sprinting through the thicket like a coward, desperate to save his own skin. To him, joining this expedition was a massive mistake. He just wants out, and right then, a shimmering rift opens directly in his path. Thwack, an arrow thuds into the dirt inches from his feet. 𝒂𝒏𝒐𝒕𝒉𝒆𝒓 freezes. He never expected to be tracked this deep into the forest. Catherine isn't letting him run. 𝒂𝒏𝒐𝒕𝒉𝒆𝒓 tries to lie his way out, putting on a fake smile and acting glad that his dear leader is still breathing. She loses it, grabbing him by the collar. She warned him of the danger, and now, their entire team is dead because of his cowardice. But 𝒂𝒏𝒐𝒉𝒆𝒓, he only cares that he is still alive. In that moment, Catherine finally sees his true face. Behind the noble act, he is just a monster. She is done talking. She tells him to vanish, doubting that even his powerful Duke father can cover up a betrayal this legendary. 𝒂𝒏𝒐𝒉𝒆𝒓's eyes fill with pure, unadulterated hatred. He calls out to her one last time, and then he strikes her from behind before she can even blink. A sinister crimson energy erupts from his hand, slamming into her chest and launching her through the air like a ragdoll. She smashes into a tree with a sickening thud. 𝒂𝒏𝒐𝒉𝒆𝒓 stalks over and grabs her by the hair, spitting that she was always too arrogant for her own good. Since she wanted to be a hero, he decides to help her out. He plans to tell the kingdom a lie, that Catherine's incompetence led to the entire mission's failure. He charges that dark magic once more. 𝒂𝒏𝒐𝒉𝒆𝒓 is ready to end her life right here in the dirt. But then the sky screams. A violent storm erupts and lightning blasts the earth right behind him. As the smoke clears, a shadow stands in the crater. 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 has arrived on the battlefield. After ages away, the legend has finally returned home. Our hero actually laughs. To think the reward for hitting the maximum level was just a ticket back to this place. He makes a silent, cold promise: revenge is coming. Suddenly, a mocking voice breaks the silence. 𝒂𝒏𝒐𝒉𝒆𝒓 thinks this newcomer is way too full of himself and demands to know who he is. He wants to know Arthur's house and his rank, but Arthur, He doesn't even give him a glance. He just starts walking away. Silas is losing his mind. He cannot believe he is being ignored while standing over a dying commander. It makes him absolutely furious. But here is the problem. Arthur saw everything. Silas realizes he can't let this witness leave the forest alive. Whoever this man is, he has to die. But Arthur isn't even looking at him. He is fixated on the necklace Catherine is wearing. It's a piece of his past. While Arthur checks on the girl, Silas snarls a final warning to stay silent. And he lunges for the kill. But wait, a massive surge of raw energy just slams Silas back like he hit a brick wall. The power is overwhelming. In that split second, Silas realizes he is in serious trouble. Arthur just looks at him, already knowing the whole ugly story. More than that, he remembers Silas was asking for a name. So he introduces himself, Arthur Hayr, sovereign of the Eternal Blade. Before Silas can even process the words, Arthur is already standing right over him. Arthur tells him that nothing he says matters anymore. A blinding beam of energy erupts, completely disintegrating the boy where he stands. The blast carves a massive trench through the forest, ending in a violent explosion. There isn't even dust left of Silas. Our hero turns his back on the carnage. Right now, he only has eyes for the girl on the ground. She is his little sister. Years ago, Catherine was just a child throwing a fit. Her mother would scold her, saying she was growing up too fast for such tantrums. Arthur would always defend her, saying she just loved the amusement parks. But he knew if they stayed, it would only make their mother's life harder. The real reason she cried, Arthur wasn't coming with them. He was staying behind to focus on his path. He gently patted her head back then, promising that even when he was away at the academy, he would always come back for her. He swore that whenever they were together, he would take her back to that park, just like she wanted. That promise was everything to her. He carried her to their carriage that day, knowing deep down that she wouldn't be his little sister forever. Then came the day of the accident, the day everything changed. Catherine spent every day since blaming herself. She thought if she hadn't been so stubborn, her parents would still be alive today. Little Catherine searched for her big brother through the wreckage, but he had vanished without a single trace. Until now. Right now, her shattered arm is being mended. Suddenly, she gasps awake. Our main character tells her she'll live, but a full recovery is going to take some serious time. Lady Alara asks who this stranger is, and he just chuckles. He figured she wouldn't recognize him after all this time. He admits he can't carry her like a child anymore, mostly because she's all grown up now. Her brain just freezes. It's impossible, right? For a split second, Alara sees a flicker of her older brother. She remembers his parting words, to stay brave, even when he was worlds away. Anger hits her first. Then, a flood of pure emotion takes over, and all she can choke out is asking where he's been for 14 long years. Sir Alistair pulls her into a comforting hug. But the second she remembers the danger, she shoves him back, frantically searching for Julian. That's when her brother points. He shows her exactly what's left of the monster who was just trying to kill her. Alara is in total shock. Staring at the carnage, she asks who could do such a thing, and Alistair steps up, taking full credit. Panic sets in. Alara grabs her brother's arm, her voice trembling as she tells him they need to run before it's too late. Back at the old manor, Alistair notes that everything is exactly how he left it decades ago. But Alara, she's terrified. Lord Ravenwood is coming for them. See, this man isn't just Julian's father. He's the head of the powerful Crimson Order. A former mercenary turned grandmaster, he's considered one of the deadliest men alive. He's one of Ethelgard's 11 legendary elite knights. Alara was supposed to report that failed mission ages ago. She's already waited too long. Ravenwood has definitely heard about his son by now. Since she's the only survivor from that squad, she's officially target number 1. Alistair just tilts his head. Is that all? He says if that's the case, he'll just have to erase this Ravenwood guy from existence too. She snaps at him to stop talking crazy. The man is a level 50 powerhouse. He didn't reach the top of the order by accident. Besides, she's reaching her breaking point. Her brother vanishes for 14 years, then drops back into her life talking absolute nonsense. She lets it all out, how hard life was after their parents died and he disappeared. She was left all alone in the world. Once again, the big question, where has he actually been all these years? For the first time, 𝒂𝒐𝒄𝒄 gets the grim truth about their parents. He just sighs, noting that his sister thinks his way of speaking is weird. He finally admits the truth. All this time, he was surviving in a brutal place known as the Great Void. But before he explains more, he needs answers. What's a knight? What's an order? And since when did this world start using levels? 𝒂𝒐𝒄𝒄 tells him to slow down because it's a lot to process. And honestly, she'd rather save the history lesson for later. She has work to do. She's heading straight to the Crimson Order's gates, so she tells him to stay put and wait for her. 𝒂𝒂𝒐𝒄𝒄 wanders into his old room, amazed it's a time capsule. He smiles to himself. His little sister has grown into a strong woman. Now it's his turn. He has to be the reliable older brother he couldn't be for the last 14 years. Step 1, dealing with this Ravenwood fellow. But then, boom, a massive crash echoes from the entrance. 3 men in black are standing there. One of them just blasted the door down with a spell. They step inside, weapons drawn and ready for a bloodbath. They want the girl. 𝒂𝒐𝒄𝒄 didn't expect this kind of speed. Lord Ravenwood actually came for her personally. Meanwhile, 𝒂𝒐𝒄𝒄 is at the Order's headquarters, heart racing. She's terrified she'll be clapped in irons the second she walks through the door. She's looking for any ally she can find when Lady Beatrice, the vice commander, spots her and asks if she's all right. Beatrice heard she was on a mission with the Grandmaster's son. She wants to know if something went sideways out there. 𝒂𝒐𝒄𝒄 is stunned. Beatrice is a legend, one of the strongest warriors in all of 𝒂𝒐𝒄𝒄. She's famously fair, but totally unreadable. 𝒂𝒐𝒄𝒄 realizes this might be her only shot at survival. Back at the manor, 𝒂𝒂𝒐𝒄𝒄 is more annoyed than scared. He mocks the intruders, telling them breaking down doors is incredibly rude. One of the thugs loses his cool, but Ravenwood puts a hand out, signaling for him to back off for a moment. Ravenwood wants 𝒂𝒐𝒄𝒄. He doesn't give a damn about 𝒂𝒂𝒐𝒄𝒄. He's just looking for the person who murdered his boy. So 𝒂𝒂𝒐𝒄𝒄 gives him what he wants. That was me. Just like that, the Lord completely loses his mind. But for 𝒂𝒂𝒐𝒄𝒄, this is perfect. Ravenwood lunges to see if he's the real deal, and the two clash with earth-shattering force. While Beatrice is curious about this mystery man, Ravenwood swings for the kill. 𝒂𝒂𝒐𝒄𝒄 just blurs out of the way. He feels the massive energy in that blade. So, this is what a knight looks like in this world. He remembers the boy Julian using something similar. Maybe it's time to run a few experiments on the father. His opponent doesn't stop. Ravenwood follows up with a relentless combo, trying to hack him to pieces. 𝒂𝒂𝒐𝒄𝒄 doesn't even blink. When the sword finally connects, it hits an invisible barrier that completely kills the momentum. The mystery is solved. 𝒂𝒂𝒐𝒄𝒄 realizes his opponent is roughly at the level of a supreme master, which, honestly, is pretty impressive for a mortal. Our hero stops the blade with a single hand. Just one. Effortless. He looks them in the eye and asks if they've got 1,000 more men just like him, because this isn't even a challenge. Seeing their leader in trouble, the subordinates don't hesitate. They rush in, desperate to back up their director before things get even worse. Suddenly, a beam of light slams into one of the shields. Arthur, our protagonist, is visibly annoyed now. He hates being interrupted when he's in the middle of something. Then, a fiery glow lights up the room as the mage lets a fireball fly. The enemies actually think they've won. They see him draw his sword and assume they've finally backed him into a corner. Big mistake. Arthur catches the blade like it's made of paper. He isn't scared, he's smiling. For him, the real fun is just getting started. For a split second, the warrior looks into Arthur's eyes and sees an absolute abyss of power. Then, without even swinging, Arthur shoves him back using nothing but raw, crushing energy. The man is spiraling. He can't wrap his head around this level of strength. He's left wondering who or what is this person. According to his sister, he was only gone for 14 years. But these guys he's crushing, They're at the Master Knight level. In this world, that means they're the elite, the top 1% of talent. It's wild. In just 14 years, humanity managed to reach the level of the Ether realm, even producing several high paladins. Honestly, it's impressive, but even with all that progress, they still don't hold a candle to the legendary 10 Grand Masters. Arthur remembers standing face to face with those legends. He mentions that the official rankings never actually included his name. Why? Because he chose to start from the absolute bottom. And in the end, when the dust settled, he was the only one left standing. Meanwhile, 𝒂𝒐𝒓𝒍, the hero's sister, is racing down the road. Her head is spinning. So much has happened so fast that she feels like she's losing her mind. Now the vice commander of the order suddenly wants an audience with her brother. She's stuck wondering if this is a golden opportunity or a total death trap. She remembers the deal Isabella offered. If 𝒂𝒐𝒓𝒍 helps them reunite, the vice commander will personally bury the entire scandal that's currently blowing up. It was an offer she couldn't refuse. At the same time, Isabella is thinking to herself that she definitely does not want Arthur as an enemy. Later, she tries to confirm the timeline with 𝒂𝒐𝒓𝒍. He vanished years ago, right? Exactly 14 years, she asks, trying to piece it together. Isabella does the math in her head and hits a terrifying realization. 14 years here equals 140 years in the other realm. She can't even fathom how powerful he's become. She asks what he's like as a person. 𝒂𝒐𝒓𝒍 tells her that her brother was always the perfect gentleman, kind, polite, and a brilliant student. He was the star pupil, even landing a full scholarship to a prestigious university before he disappeared. But more than that, he's the type who never quits. If he starts a task, he's going to see it through to the very end, no matter what. Back at the fight, Arthur points to the last guy who swung at him. He found that specific power interesting, so he tells him to do it again. Right then, he throws a blind punch, dropping someone trying to sneak up behind him. The mage, mid-spell, watches this and is absolutely paralyzed with fear. The mage fires anyway, but Arthur's shield soaks it up like it's nothing. Now, it's Arthur's turn to show off a few tricks of his own. He summons massive ice golems out of thin air. In a heartbeat, the mage is a human popsicle. The guy with the shield tries to bolt, but a magical barrier slams shut, trapping him like a rat. He doesn't even see it coming. A bolt of lightning drops from the ceiling and strikes him right in the forehead. Game over. Their leader looks on, disgusted. He thinks it's pathetic that the shielder exposed the path so easily. Now, he's the only one left. Arthur doesn't care. He knows thugs aren't loyal when things get ugly. The leader, 𝒂𝒐𝒓𝒍, thinks he's fighting a mage, but he's confused. No magic should be able to tank his hits like this. Then it hits him. Despite the absolute chaos of the battle, the room is completely untouched. Not a single scratch on the walls. It has to be a barrier. 𝒂𝒂𝒑 asks if Arthur knew they were coming and set all of this up in advance. Arthur explains he used a sword of the mind technique to protect the home. He didn't want them wrecking his furniture. He admits it's a bit hard to explain the mechanics. But the bottom line, the second they stepped through his door, they were in his territory. But 𝒂𝒂𝒑 refuses to go down without a fight. He screams as his berserk ability kicks in, his eyes going wild. He lets out a massive shockwave of energy. Arthur is actually a little impressed. The guy is boosting his power to the max, clearly planning to take Arthur down with him. 𝒂𝒂𝒑 ignores the commentary and lunges forward, unleashing a storm of strikes. It's clear he's completely lost his mind to the rage. A sword comes flying at our hero. Arthur just sighs. He decides it's time to teach this man a lesson in respect. With one clean motion, he strikes. A single movement, and 𝒂𝒂𝒑 is sliced clean in two. "Be honored," Arthur tells the falling man. "You were hit by the Emperor of the Supreme Sword." Just then, 𝒂𝒑𝒑 and Isabella finally reach the house. They walk in and catch the legendary warrior in the middle of cleaning the living room. He tells them he was just warming up, even if things got a bit messy. 𝒂𝒑𝒑 starts scolding him for causing trouble the second he gets back, but he tells her she needs to go to the Ether realm and get stronger. That's when Arthur finally locks eyes with the vice commander. He can feel it. Her energy vibrates with the power of celestial arts. Isabella is floored. She didn't think anyone else could use sound transmission until she went to the other side. She thought she was unique. The next morning, Alara is fast asleep in her room, exhausted from the chaos. Suddenly, she bolts upright. Panic sets in. She starts running through the house, screaming her brother's name, terrified he's gone. Then she hears it, his voice. Arthur is right there, joking and asking if she really thought he'd vanished on her again. Relieved that this wasn't just a cruel dream, Seraphina asks why he's awake so early. But 𝒂𝒓 just signals for silence, staring intensely at his crystal slate as something catches his eye. It has been 1 full week since our hero finally returned to the kingdom. Yet reality still feels like a haze. Lady Alina of House Valerius promised they would meet again, while her servants moved in to scrub every trace of the struggle from his chambers. That very same day, town criers announced the grim fate of Sir Julian and the sudden, shocking retirement of his high-ranking father. Seraphina had stayed true to her word, it seems. Since Seraphina was the lone survivor of that last suicide mission, the Order will be watching her closely, and now the lady has summoned her brother. What is she actually plotting? All she can do is pray her brother stays safe. Meanwhile, Lady Alina sits poised and alone in a quiet tavern. 𝒂𝒓 finds it almost funny how she doesn't seem to have a care in the world. After all, highborn ladies are usually swarmed by armored knights. She notes his punctuality before clearing the air. Those aren't bodyguards. Just one elite protector. Sipping the brew, 𝒂𝒓 recognizes the vintage. Alina admits she used to travel to the capital of Highrest just for this tea, back when she lived in the Elder Realm. Our hero appreciates that she's finally stopped the games and gotten straight to the point. She reveals the truth. 3 souls were actually cast into that distant, martial dimension. Besides the 2 of them, there was also Duke Alaric, sovereign of the Twilight Order and her house's most bitter rival. Alina's investigation into the Duke revealed something wild. Back in the year 2011, he awoke deep within a forgotten cavern. Beside him lay a forbidden tome titled The Path of Celestial Divinity. The moment he stepped out, he found himself lost in the Forbidden Empire. It was the exact same path 𝒂𝒓 had walked. He had received the very same divine message. If he ever wanted to see his home world again, the boy had to conquer that realm entirely. 𝒂𝒓's return coincided perfectly with the Age of Rifts and the rise of the champions. Surely no coincidence. He demands to know what she knows about the dungeons. She explains that 14 years ago, a goddess appeared, bringing monsters and a divine class system straight out of a legend into their reality. The protagonist wants to know how she and Alaric escaped that hell. Alina's answer: they died. The air turns cold instantly. Our hero remembers their plea to witness the end of that world. 𝒂𝒓 is visibly, deeply agitated. He wonders, does this goddess know exactly who banished him to the Forbidden Empire in the first place? If reaching the peak of power granted him a return home, there must be a similar prize for conquering the rifts as a champion. That's his ticket to the answers he craves. Alina grows wary as 𝒂𝒓's aura flares, and he demands to know why she's really approaching him. She suggests a walk. Her house was at the brink of war with Alaric's forces, but now they've lost their commander. Since our hero was the one who ended him, she insists he must now take responsibility for the power vacuum he created. The lady offers 𝒂𝒓 a high-ranking command position within her own noble order. She promises riches and renown. 𝒂𝒓 admits he can't ignore his sister's superior, but his answer is still a hard no. When she asks why, he simply says he's a lone wolf, and there's one more thing. 𝒂𝒓 refuses to be subordinate to anyone weaker than himself. Alina smirks, proposing a duel right then and there to see who truly holds the power. Our hero mentions he spent 140 years in the Forbidden Empire. Alina just laughs. Age doesn't always equal mastery. 𝒂𝒓 agrees completely. Even if someone spent 300 years there, they still wouldn't touch his level. Alina decides to test that theory. A massive surge of mana erupts from her, reaching across the field to find our protagonist. The energy forms a terrifying, magical eye. Her secret art, the waltz of shadows. Instantly, 𝒂𝒏𝒐𝒉𝒆𝒍's senses are under siege. The world around him plunges into total, suffocating darkness. Maintaining a spell on this scale requires staggering energy. This is her trump card. She's created a miniature pocket dimension. To any onlooker, nothing has changed, except for the fact that they've both vanished into thin air. In the Forbidden Empire, they called her the Crimson Rose, a ghost who never missed a kill. 𝒂𝒏𝒐𝒉𝒆𝒍 knew she was a fighter who'd go to the bitter end. Now there are only two paths left. This is a fight for survival. Despite her threats, 𝒂𝒏𝒐𝒉𝒆𝒍 realizes this domain isn't just a cage, and in a flash, cold steel is already pressed against his throat. "Spot on," she whispers. 𝒂𝒏𝒐𝒉𝒆𝒍 blurs past the blade, but Alina pivots instantly. He meets every strike with just his bare palm. Even with that godlike speed, she can't find a single opening in his absolute defense. She readies a devastating flurry. Forced by the sheer pressure, 𝒂𝒏𝒐𝒉𝒆𝒍 finally leaps back to create some distance. He watches her from afar, noting her bizarre style. It's the forbidden art of the Night King, the deadliest assassin in the Elder Realm. Alina freezes. She's absolutely floored that he identified her secret lineage with just one single glance. Alaric Thorne casually mentions he's faced this style before. Apparently, the last guy was such a novice that Alaric ended the fight in literally 1 second. Talk about a flex. So our hero makes her an offer. If she can actually take him down using 3 distinct fighting styles, he'll officially sign up with her order. But here's the kicker. That last exchange, that was already style number 1. Lady Alara accepts the terms, but Alaric is genuinely impressed because, suddenly, she completely vanishes from his senses. It's like she turned into a ghost. Then, out of nowhere, bam, 3 massive bursts of pure energy come screaming toward him. He's actually enjoying this. Alaric tries to weave through the chaos, but this magic is relentless. It's literally hunting him down as he moves. Time to get serious. Alaric readies his own technique and shatters her strike with a focused burst of his own aura. He comes out of the smoke without a single scratch, but he's not being arrogant. He admits her power is magnificent, but she's not done. She lunges at him again instantly. Style number 2, done. Alara backs off, and the vice commander admits she's heard the legends about him. She knows he was the undisputed king of the masters, which is exactly why she has to be the strongest. Suddenly, the ground erupts as jagged stakes of energy thrust upward. Then, Alara makes a bold declaration. If she can somehow bring him down, she'll be the undisputed number 1 in the entire world. Our boy Alaric finds the whole thing fascinating. But then, silence. For a second, he's actually speechless. This is it, her ultimate move. The forbidden shadow blade. Alara pours every last drop of her soul into this attack, as the shadows themselves begin closing in from every single direction. To counter, Alaric unleashes the blade of the mind. Boom! A massive explosion rocks the area as light and shadow tear into each other, fighting for dominance. The backlash hits Alara hard. A boulder the size of a house comes flying right at her, but she's frozen. Her body just won't move. It's like she's paralyzed by fear or exhaustion. At the very last millisecond, Alaric steps in and saves her. And just like that, third style is over. Game over. Alaric asks if she's got anything left in the tank, but she's trembling. She finally bows her head and admits defeat. The dark clouds part, and the sky returns to normal. She's done fighting, but she has one burning question she needs answered. Alara needs to know what he did. For a moment, she felt like she wasn't fighting a man, but an unstoppable force of nature she could never hope to conquer. Alaric tells her she's right to be confident. In that shadow domain of hers, she'd be stronger than any ordinary human, for sure. That last word, ordinary, really catches her off guard. She asks what level of power he's actually reached, but Alaric just smiles, thinking it was a pretty decent warm-up. Because of that performance, he agrees to join the Order of the Dawn, but on his terms. He needs materials, information, and total support. Here's the catch, though he's a freelancer. No uniform, no official membership. They'll be allies, nothing more. Our hero doesn't take orders from anyone, ever. 𝒉 agrees, but she has one condition of her own. He has to promise never to join the Midnight Syndicate, no matter what. Alaric swears it, putting his reputation as the sovereign of the Supreme Blade on the line. 𝒉 thinks that title is a bit too flashy maybe. Also, Alaric makes it clear he's done being followed. Consider this the final warning. The vice commander quickly promises she won't do anything to mess up their new partnership. Then, in a strange move, he tears his own cloak as a sign of apology. He admits he was provoking her on purpose just to see a high-tier master knight in action. For a split second, the legendary warrior actually looks a little bit embarrassed. But she says she didn't mind because it allowed her to fight at full strength. Curious, Alaric asks why a lady like her chose the path of an assassin over everything else. Her answer? Chilling. She says there was a time when she was so desperate, she felt like she absolutely had to end someone's life. And that's where they leave it. Alaric starts remembering the cryptic messages he used to get about how to return to his original world. He realizes he and 𝒉 aren't so different. They're both fueled by a burning need for vengeance. Meanwhile, a carriage waits at the edge of a dusty road. Her guard looks worried sick until she finally climbs in. He immediately asks if she's all right. The man realized she had to use the dance of shadows, and 𝒉 admits she couldn't even put a scratch on her target with it. As expected, he's a complete monster. She's totally drained of mana and, get this, she didn't even manage to land a single hit. She doesn't even understand how he defended himself. She's totally defeated. The guard then asks if she really plans on sending this guy to the Great Festival. The vice commander nods. Alaric is going to be their secret weapon against Lord Percival. She remembers a prophecy telling her she must follow him because he is the god of war. Without Alaric Thorn, she knows the kingdom is doomed. Finally, our protagonist makes it back home. But before he can even get a word out, his sister sprints over and tackles him with a hug. He's caught off guard because she's literally trying to crush him with affection. She tells him she doesn't want him going anywhere dangerous ever again. She's terrified that he'll just vanish into thin air like before. Alaric gets it, he really does. But then he drops the bomb. He's planning on becoming an elite slayer. And yeah, his sister is absolutely not happy about it. He explains that this weird glowing relic he's got was a gift from the sage 𝒔𝒏𝒈. With this thing, he can finally see his own soul script. Alaric holds the item tight, and immediately, the catalyst begins to pulse with light. But then, the relic starts falling apart, disintegrating right in his hands. Even Alaric starts to feel a bit let down when it looks like nothing is happening. Alaric Thorn grumbles to himself, convinced Lady Isabella is just another high society scammer, but his sister 𝒉 tells him to just shut up and open his status screen. 2 screens flash into existence, one showing he's a max-level legend, while the other lists him as a level 1 nobody with absolutely no class. Talk about a reality check. That glowing orange window, that's from the eastern heavens, and only he can see it. On the flip side, the blue one displays his official Slayer status for this world to see. 𝒉 leans in, dying to see what kind of prestigious class her brother landed, but the look on her face, pure, unadulterated shock. Then she starts celebrating. She's thrilled that his destiny isn't to be a slayer, and in her eyes, that's a huge win. See, in this kingdom, there are 6 paths you usually follow. You're either a warrior, a shield bearer, a mage, a priest, an archer, or a rogue. Everyone starts with a base class they're stuck with for life, eventually evolving into something elite, like a local archer who just became a legendary sharpshooter. But Alaric has nothing. To her, that's total proof that he's just a normal guy who can live a safe, quiet life. Sure, a commoner can still try to be a slayer, but without a class, you get 0 abilities. That's why she's praying he'll just pack it in right now. A slayer needs experience points to level up and gain the supernatural skills required to actually survive a monster fight. In contrast, a classless person has to learn techniques manually. To give you some perspective, even the cheapest combat scroll costs 20 million gold pieces. Slayers with classes get stronger automatically as they go. those without one. They have to keep pouring a literal fortune into their training just to keep up. So the big question remains. Alaric is broke. But then he remembers Lady Isabella promised to sponsor his entire journey. Unfortunately for Alara, he didn't fall for her discouragement. Looking back, if he hadn't made that secret alliance, he'd be in serious trouble right now. But here's the kicker. The fact that he was a god-tier martial genius in the eastern heavens means that here on Earth, he's viewed as having zero talent at all. We move to the Frost Peak range. The Radiant Order calls this a tutorial raid, but you could definitely describe it with much simpler words. It's a bunny hunt, or at least it was, until an arrow makes one of those rabbits absolutely explode in a shower of fur. Alaric thinks the whole thing is pathetic. All this high-end gear and effort just to catch a tiny rabbit. He's not impressed. Alara warns him that plenty of rookie slayers come here, act like it's a joke, and end up dead. Then she points out a mana crystal. It's packed with raw, unrefined natural energy. They're worth a fortune, and they're the literal reason the old coal plants were shut down for good. Alara tells her brother to keep his head on a swivel, because in a dungeon, anything can happen in the blink of an eye. Before she can even finish her warning, he's already wiped out a whole swarm of them. What really burns her up is that he's totally ignoring her. Meanwhile, Alaric realizes a major problem. When he uses his Eastern martial powers, he doesn't earn a single Slayer experience point. He looks over his new ability, wondering if he got scammed after all. The power he received is just a basic dagger technique, a D-rank joke. His sister snaps at him for complaining about a free power, especially since he managed to snag a D-rank ability right out of the gate. Alara comments that she doesn't know what kind of deal he made with that woman, but it's obvious Isabella is just planning to use him. Alaric keeps icing her out, looking deeply irritated. Even Alara notices the mood has shifted. It's getting heavy. But before she can even touch him, he catches her hand and asks if she doesn't have somewhere else to be. Alara is in total shock. Exactly 337 rabbits. That's how many her brother can sense nearby with his insanely heightened perception. She thinks that's way too many for a supposed beginner to track. And that's the exact moment her brother just walks away into the fray. Alaric is feeling the sting of humiliation. Using a D-rank skill. For a man who reached the absolute pinnacle of swordsmanship, this is an insult. On top of that, he's labeled a classless nobody. Alaric draws his weapon into the air, channeling every ounce of his inner energy. When he lands, a massive crater shatters the earth beneath his boots. That army of rabbits is just glaring at him, sensing the sudden danger. He hears Alara screaming at him to run, but he just jokes that she should save that anger for later. Right now, he's busy thinking about how to roast these guys. Suddenly, a dozen warning messages pop up at once. They're basic instructions from the system on how to use a blade. He gets even more pissed off when the system tries to guide his hand. As far as he's concerned, the fun and games are officially over. The rabbits attack in one massive wave, looking more like beasts than pets. Who do they think they are, trying to teach a master how to fight? Alaric cuts them all down in a single blur. He was told Slayers only appeared 14 years ago. It'll take them another 100 years to reach his level. The system pings again. Another notification about his dagger technique flashes on the screen. This looks like something new. Alaric turns to his sister, completely casual, and asks what these annoying messages actually mean. He complains that the windows are too small and wants to enlarge them. Alara, meanwhile, is losing her mind over what he just did. Alaric just shrugs it off as a bug or a glitch. But Alara can't wrap her head around how he reached 𝑺𝒏𝒐𝒕𝒉𝒆𝒄 proficiency in swordsmanship that fast. Something else in the logs catches the hero's attention. He asks if passive skills gain points without using mana, and she just nods, completely dazed. Alaric actually looks happy for once. His skill is described as a divine treasure, requiring A+ proficiency, a level that goes way beyond mere perfection. Sebastian Thorne is convinced this move will make his journey through the kingdom much easier. He takes a breath and prepares his first strike. the impact triggers a massive wave of energy. It turns out, he can actually rack up skill points just by mastering these ancient martial arts. That explains everything. The top Night Seekers in 𝒂𝒗𝒊𝒏𝒈, like Lady Isabella and Sir Percival, must have all unlocked their own legendary unique skills. Hearing this, Alara Thorne looks down at her own bow with new eyes. She immediately turns to her brother, practically begging him to teach her the ways of the blade. Isabella admits she had a feeling before, but now she's certain. Sebastian is dangerously powerful. She still remembers the nightmare they faced back in the Crimson Rift. Alara knows if she doesn't get stronger right now, she won't be able to stop a tragedy like that from happening ever again. The guilt would eat her alive, but deep down, she fears she'll never truly match the godlike strength her brother possesses. Before she can spiral into her emotions, Sebastian gives her a firm promise. Yes, he's going to teach her everything he knows. This is the very first time our hero has taken on a disciple. It's a win-win, really, since he can keep her close and ensure she finally learns how to protect herself. With the deal sealed, he tells her to follow her new master. The two of them take off, sprinting across the vast, open fields together. Alara wonders what his next move is. Is he going to stick to the standard Night Seeker abilities? Right then, two feral beasts lunge at them from the brush. Sebastian doesn't skip a beat. He taps into his martial arts, obliterating both monsters with one single, devastating blow. Our hero admits he honestly has no idea what his future holds as a Night Seeker in this kingdom. Even now, knowing the secret to leveling up, he's still hunting for a proper class skill. He remembers how Isabella managed to evolve by fusing the ancient arts with her rogue abilities. He needs to find a class that actually fits his style. That's when the light bulb finally goes off in his head. Sebastian suddenly leaps into the air, hovering high above the beasts. He begins channeling raw, crackling energy directly into the palm of his hand. Standard martial skills are too limited, and other paths are a nightmare to fuse. But what about magic? With one massive blast, he levels the entire field. His sister is worried he's being a bit too reckless, but Sebastian couldn't be happier. With magic on his side, his options are basically limitless. And just like that, the choice is made. He's going to become a battle mage. Alara is the only one stressing out because, as she's told him 1,000 times, you can't just pick a class. But Sebastian clearly doesn't care about the rules. After testing both systems, the truth is clear. They're worlds apart. The old 𝒉𝒻 system just doesn't have a place in this new world anymore. Meanwhile, Alara is just glowing with joy. For the first time in forever, she won't have to worry about every single coin they spend. On the other hand, the Night Seeker interface is way more intuitive, almost like the two systems were designed by completely different people. The Night Seeker system is reliable and rewards you fast. Put in the effort, and anyone can climb the ranks to greatness. The Ancient Way is a different story. It's brutal, slow, and forces you to gamble your life over and over just to get a little bit stronger. The celestial goddess is a legend, the one who birthed the arts of divine cultivation. Back in that cave, Sebastian hadn't realized that finding her book was either insane luck or pure destiny. Following that logic, it must have been the goddess who gifted the Night Seeker system to all of humanity in the first place. That's when the truth hits him like a lightning bolt. The creator of the original 𝒉𝒻 system was the celestial god. With Isabella's backing, Sebastian has spent the last month diving headfirst into every dangerous dungeon he can find. Fighting these giant monster birds finally makes him feel at home. Honestly, there isn't a meal in the whole kingdom more classic than roast fowl. He's already pushed himself to level 22. Meanwhile, Alara has been studying her mana nodes, and she's finally learned how to channel her inner energy. Even if she's starting late, there's always a path to power for those who want it badly enough. Curious, Alara asks what the training involves. He bluntly tells her she's going to be coughing up a lot of blood, which, scares the life out of her. Sebastian works on opening every single one of her blocked mana channels. It works, but it leaves poor Alara absolutely exhausted. She even nearly singed his hair off a couple of times. High Lady Isabella watches them, realizing Sebastian is doing great. It's time to make their alliance official. Sebastian finds it hilarious how she never beats around the bush. He tells her it's been quite a while since her last raven arrived. Isabella leans in close, right in his space, and surprisingly invites him out on a date. After the initial shock, it's the first time he's ever been asked out, Sebastian actually ends up saying no. Isabella gets serious. A new rift has appeared in Blackwood Forest. It's a rank 10 threat, and hunters need to be level 50 just to survive. No low-level seeker stands a chance, except him. Sebastian Thorne asks the obvious question. Why does she want to walk into such a death trap with only 2 people? First off, she wants total control of that dungeon. But more importantly, she needs Sebastian to level up as fast as humanly possible. He asks if she's trying to carry him, but Isabella just laughs. The way he talks, it doesn't sound like some wise old master at all. Our hero wants to know why she's so obsessed with him getting strong. The High Lady pauses, thinking carefully before she finally answers. She tells him about the Solstice Tournament, held every year by the Order of the Dawn and the House of Nightfall. It's a brutal battle to crown the best in 𝒂𝒗𝒊𝒏𝒈. They promote it as a way to bring the houses together, but in reality, it's a hunt to see who's truly the most dangerous predator in the kingdom. These 2 great houses are locked in a brutal, never-ending feud over the cursed rifts. What really happens inside those dark depths? Nobody knows. It's all kept behind closed doors, away from the public eye. Alaric is dying to know what's actually fueling this bloodshed between the noble factions. He's already figured it's about more than just land disputes. Lady Alara confirms his suspicions. It's Lord Blackwood. The man just snapped, started tearing House Aurora apart like a man possessed for no reason. And for what? To force everyone to kneel before some twisted, celestial deity he claims to serve. Hearing this, Alaric loses it. He grabs her, demanding every single detail she's hiding about this madman. But all Alara knows is that Blackwood received a cryptic message from the void. Alaric's frustrated. He can't even read people's souls yet to see who's lying and who's telling the truth. The Lady Commander is heartbroken. She can't wrap her head around how he could turn so cold toward her, his own guide, and everyone else over a single message. Especially since, before Alaric arrived, those 2 were the only ones who had ever survived a trip into the void. That leaves Alaric deep in thought. Then she drops the big request. She wants him to represent House Aurora in the upcoming grand tournament. Lately, the balance of power has been tipping dangerously toward the Twilight Order. It's because they've been seizing every cursed rift they find by sheer, bloody force. If that weakness is exposed at the festival, House Aurora is finished. They're already vulnerable after losing one of their top knights, the former commander, all because of our hero. But Alaric still doesn't get why she's so obsessed with him, evolving his skills as a knight. Alara explains that the Tournament of Solis is the world's biggest stage. Every noble house and every scrap of media will be watching. She knows he wants to stay hidden because his real power would terrify the other knights. Or maybe he's just arrogant enough to think he can take on the whole kingdom at once. That's the catch. To play the game at the festival, he can only use standard knight abilities. And since Alaric owes her one, he's backed into a corner. He doesn't even get a chance to say no. She already treats it like a done deal. She's already counting them up. 6 arcane spells, 2 elite-tier enchantments, plus a rare sorcerer's blessing he's picked up. Alaric realizes he's going to have to face this Blackwood guy eventually anyway. Might as well take the deal. It's actually a win for him. Then he sees a piece of parchment floating toward him, unlike the lawless void he came from. This world has rules. It's time for the legal stuff. Contracts, just a few documents to sign, she says. Payment bonds, service agreements, the works. Alaric realizes he needs to officially register his own mercenary band. He can't just be a rogue and represent a great house at the tournament. At the end of the day, if he wants to be official, he needs a proper business seal. And if he wants those mana shards that are worth more than a castle, he'd better sign. Lady Alara had this whole thing rigged from the very beginning. Alaric needs to name his new order as a formality. He can write down literally anything. He chooses the Boundless. Just like that, they're warped to the next mission. Honestly, Alaric feels like he only leaves his room to go kill monsters. This rift, it's the aviary of the Cursed Cliffs. Lady Alara warns him, individually these birds are weak, but here they're dealing with an endless, swarming sea of them. Alaric scans the area with his ether sense. 3,000, minimum. He just grins, the more the merrier. He summons a glowing lance of pure starlight. With one massive strike, he electrocutes every single creature in the sky. Alara is stunned because he literally just learned that technique. But to Alaric, magic and life force flow the same way. She tells him to slow down or he'll burn out, but he's not even breaking a sweat. Alaric asks if these rifts always just have one species of monster inside. She says yes, and Alaric finds that weird. Alara explains that in the 14 years since the rifts opened, thousands have been cleared. And never once has there been a case of two different monster types sharing the same rift. Suddenly, something shreds a bird monster and slams the remains into the wall. A massive drake lets out a bone-chilling roar of pure fury. Meanwhile, by a quiet lake, a man calmly scatters feed to the fish. This is the estate of the Twilight Order's Grandmaster. Lord Blackwood, his shadow Captain Vance, reports that the Lady Commander of Aurora is acting strange. Word is, she's pouring resources into some new recruit and spending all her time in the rifts with him. Blackwood doesn't even blink. He couldn't care less about gossip, but Vance keeps going. The boy is the brother of an Aurora knight. He vanished 14 years ago and just reappeared out of nowhere. That hits home. Blackwood stops. He wants to know exactly where that rookie has been hiding all this time. Vance checks his scrolls. They don't know where he was, but they do know the former commander of Aurora didn't just step down. He vanished after hunting this kid down because of some mess with his son. Blackwood just sighs. That man is dead. Vance looks skeptical, but Blackwood is certain. Alaric is the one who finished him, and that's exactly why he's convinced Alaric crawled out of the void. Meanwhile, our hero just stands there, staring at the mountain of defeated creatures he left behind. Our main man Caspian Vance feels like these new skills are a world away from his old sovereign powers. Seraphina calls him out immediately, mostly because he's clearly having way too much fun wrecking things. Here's the catch. He's been tearing through this dungeon for at least an hour. By all logic, he should be bone dry on mana after nuking everything in his path. Caspian realizes he needs to clear the air, so he decides to explain exactly how his engine works to her. He brings up a specific skill, one that actually lets him trade his very life force for raw, unadulterated mana. He explains that back in the Highlands, he achieved the ethereal form. It basically gave him an infinite moveset and supreme, eternal vitality. Talk about a cheat code. Seraphina's brain is basically melting from all this crazy info. Caspian sees her struggling and gives her the short version. He's got an infinite energy loop. Simple as that. Even if the combat styles are different, once you hit the absolute tier, everything just clicks. All paths lead to the same peak. Practically speaking, there's nothing he can't do because he's already maxed out his level. And with that bombshell dropped, Caspian heads off to delete the boss. Seraphina watches him go, thinking that with a monster like him on their side, the upcoming royal festival is basically already won. A stray beast tries to seize the moment and lunges at her. Big mistake. The creature didn't even stand a ghost of a chance. She decides it's time to earn her keep. The sky is literally crawling with monsters, but Seraphina carves through the entire swarm in mere seconds. Right after the strike, she latches onto a cliffside to keep her balance. She uses the rock to build momentum and launches herself back into the fray. Our vice commander is just bouncing from monster to monster, clearing them out one by one. She reaches the mountain's edge, but the tide just won't stop. They just keep coming. Seraphina makes a mental note to hike up this dungeon's danger rating the moment she's back. The reports were way off on the monster count. She's leaning hard into their squad's perfect synergy to survive this nightmare mission. They've got a mage, an archer, a cleric, and a scout, And well, Caspian, but suddenly her gut twists. Something feels horribly wrong. A flight of massive dragons shadows the sun. Beyond just being huge, she can't wrap her head around why two totally different species are teaming up in one dungeon. She pulls a mid-air dodge just before getting flattened, but another one is already closing in for the kill. This time, she's got her magic ready. But here, the problem, a dragon she didn't even see coming slams into her while she's still in the air. Seraphina realizes it now. These things are using demonic energy. The entire dungeon's logic has been completely shattered. Luckily, she catches herself at the very last second. And Caspian, he'd been waiting for this exact moment to happen. She is absolutely livid. He knew these things were coming. He claimed there was a boss, but he was just saving them for last on purpose. Caspian tells her he knows she's in shock, but he also knows she's more than capable of handling these overgrown lizards. Then, out of nowhere, he asks if she wants her food fried or grilled because he's starving. Seraphina snaps. Now is definitely not the time for jokes. Caspian just grins and summons raw fire in one hand and crackling lightning in the other. These are just a few of his new toys. He was actually baiting them. Every dragon in the sky dives straight for him, but a second later, the air is filled with falling, dead monsters. While our hero is doing his thing, Seraphina is just confused. She thought he'd use high-level spells, but for some reason, he's just using his bare fists. Caspian just laughs and says this is pure magic. Seraphina is stunned into silence as a massive portal rips open, pouring even more dragons into the fight. Terrified for him, she rushes to help, but he doesn't even flinch. He just stands there and lets the swarm swallow him whole. She fires off her strongest skill, trying to blast an opening so they can escape, but these creatures aren't budging an inch. They're actually absorbing the impact. The bigger monsters are literally using the smaller ones as living shields. She screams Caspian's name. One thing is crystal clear now. The small fry aren't moving on instinct or hunting for food. The big ones are calling the shots. They're forcing the others to throw their lives away. Now she's got a plan. They have to take out the leaders. But is her friend even alive? Seraphina can't stop thinking about the last look she saw on Caspian's face. By the look in his eyes, he didn't miss that dodge. He stayed there on purpose. It's infuriating how she can never tell what he's actually thinking. She wants to help, but this is the first time they've dealt with an anomaly this broken. They're pushing the absolute limits of difficulty here. That's when it hits her. While the creatures are busy with the chaos, one of them doesn't even notice a girl hitching a ride on its back. Her plan is to find the monster masterminding this mess, but out of nowhere, another beast crashes right into the one she's riding. She's in freefall. She aims for another target and jams her dagger in just to stay on. Finally, the monsters are paying attention to her. But it's too late. She's confident that one-on-one, she can take them down, so she triggers her midnight waltz. Problem is, he isn't alone. It's a fight with no end in sight. And then a rogue spell grazes her body. A heartbeat later, boom, a massive explosion rips through the sky. Seraphina can't even fathom where that much energy is coming from. Caspian is unleashing his 𝒂𝒏𝒐𝒕𝒉𝒆𝒓 magic, but the scale is off the charts. She's finally seeing what limitless power actually looks like. Caspian says he's bored of playing the hunter. Thousands of shimmering swords appear instantly. A rain of pure light just deletes every monster in the sky. In the blink of an eye, they're all obliterated. The battle is finally over, but one huge question is still hanging in the air. Imagine the carnage if this happened in another abyssal rift. At this point, the kingdom's danger assessment system is basically a joke. An entire battalion of knights could be slaughtered if this occurs elsewhere. Maybe the summer solstice tournament isn't our biggest problem after all. One thing is for certain, Lord Percival is going to pounce on this opportunity. If Lady Elinor isn't careful, House Twilight will absolutely bury them. Elinor is paralyzed, totally unsure of her next move. But while she's lost in thought, someone thrusts something right in front of her face. Alistair tells her she's daydreaming too much. He's holding up a gem that looks nothing like the usual loot they find in these crypts. She explains it's an essence gem, and since it came from a massive beast, its power will be legendary. But 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒕𝒆𝒊𝒏𝒈, he still looks completely zoned out. The house vice commander calls out to our hero. She's got something important she needs to tell him. 1 month later, a group of young squires are gossiping about the solstice tournament and a mysterious new knight in one of the great houses. Turns out, our main man is the talk of the realm. Everyone's saying he's House Aurora's secret weapon. 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒕𝒆𝒊𝒏𝒈 realizes he's in deep trouble now. Over at House Twilight, the council is fuming. They don't know a single thing about this rookie who's taking the kingdom by storm. One knight is so busy ranting he doesn't even notice the Grand Master is right there. He looks calm, but then bam! He orders the man to sit down instantly. Shaken, he obeys the command. The Grand Master muses that House Aurora played their trump card way too early this time. Sooner or later, they'll find out if this boy is the real deal. But for now, they're going to force him out of the game entirely. Sir Julian is waiting in the tavern, looking incredibly twitchy. He keeps checking his pocket watch, expecting his guest to arrive any second. The moment he sees his guest, Julian bolts upright. He's clearly relieved that this person actually accepted his invitation. Our hero, 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒕𝒆𝒊𝒏𝒈, takes a good look around the place. Then, his eyes land on Julian's extended hand. Finally, he accepts the handshake. He asks if he's speaking to Sir Julian, the aide he was supposed to meet, then quickly tries to sound more formal. Because of that little slip-up, Julian thinks the protagonist is being incredibly arrogant. But that's the whole plan. Julian needs to dig up every bit of information he can on our hero. Watching this little performance from the side, 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒕𝒆𝒊𝒏𝒈 starts wondering if everyone in House Twilight is just a complete idiot. Julian places an enchanted artifact on the table. One click, and a magical silence curtain drops, cutting off all noise from the rest of the tavern. Our boy finds it hilarious how desperate this guy is for a private conversation. Julian gets straight to it. His house wants a partnership. 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒕𝒆𝒊𝒏𝒈 just shrugs and mentions he's already working with House Aurora. Julian knows. He even knows about the gold 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒕𝒆𝒊𝒏𝒈's been receiving from them for his services. Not just that. They know about the incident in the southern province, and they've been tracking his every move in the rifts alongside Lady Alinor. Despite all that, they know he refused to join Aurora officially. Instead, he started his own mercenary group and just stayed friends with them. Knowing all this, Julian bets there's a rift between the hero and the house. He makes his move, promising 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒕𝒆𝒊𝒏𝒈 everything his heart desires and more. 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒕𝒆𝒊𝒏𝒈 actually starts to respect the guy's hustle. It was a perfect pitch. Julian offers to explain the contracts, but our hero shuts him down. The protagonist admits he only came out of curiosity. Turns out, it was a total waste of his time. Scrambling to save the deal, Julian promises him a fortune if he just sits out the summer solstice tournament. But 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒕𝒆𝒊𝒏𝒈 isn't biting. He owes Alinor too much, and honestly, he just hates losing. Julian tries to block his path as he walks away. He had so much more to say. Then, a voice cuts through the air, asking the aide how long he plans on staring at an empty doorway. The Grand Master was there the whole time. Lord Percival recalls the one task he gave to Julian. He wanted his aide to keep the talking going as long as possible, so he could eavesdrop on every single word from the start. Julian tries to apologize, but Percival isn't hearing it. Something felt strange. He leaves the meeting, wondering who exactly this 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒕𝒆𝒊𝒏𝒈 is. Lady Alinor gets the report about the secret meeting and knows Percival must be absolutely fuming right now. Our hero figures Percival sensed his forbidden arts background, but since his true title is still a secret, he's not worried. The second he stepped into that tavern, 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒕𝒆𝒊𝒏𝒈 felt Percival testing him, raising his crushing aura to see if he'd break. Alinor thinks they're safe for a bit. Since the Grand Master's plan failed, he probably won't crawl out of his hole for a while. The protagonist asks for an update on the Rift investigation. The vice commander says it's quiet, at least for now. He remembers her thanking him for finding the real beast in the crypt and saving her life. He offers to help more, but she tells him not to worry. but she can tell Alistair's mood has shifted. Before he can say a word, his sister calls. It's time to go. He hangs up the phone immediately. The two of them have a very important place to be, the family cemetery. Behind the glass, a portrait of their family sits in the shadows. Claire whispers to their father that her brother has finally come back home. From the shadows, Alistair watched the scene unfold. A bitter thought crossed his mind. Coming here was a massive mistake. He was the man he used to be, not even close. Looking at his sister, he realized something terrifying. He couldn't even cry. Not here, not now. He desperately wanted to hide this cold, inhuman shell from Alara, but it was too late. It was useless. Alara looked at him, her eyes searching for a spark of the brother she knew. "Don't you feel anything?" she whispered, her voice trembling. She saw no grief, no pain, just a hollow void where his heart should be. She begged him to say something, anything. But all Alistair could muster was a flat, "I'm sorry." Those words were hollow. He had become a stranger, someone incapable of giving her the comfort she needed. Watching him like that just made Alara's world crumble into pure resentment. "You don't get it," she screamed, her voice echoing through the courtyard. She didn't want an apology. She just wanted her brother back, one simple thing. For a heartbeat, a flash of their childhood crossed her mind. They were so close once. She couldn't wrap her head around how he'd become this frozen, distant statue of a man. This man, he wasn't Alistair anymore. To her, he was a ghost. But honestly, she decided it didn't matter. She had survived the loneliness for years. She could do it again. She turned her back and walked away, leaving him in the cold. Alistair stood there, haunted by regret. Why did he come? And more importantly, what the hell happened to him? He wanted answers just as much as she did. Then, out of nowhere, a flicker. A shimmering sigil burned into the air before his eyes. A message from the Eternal Arbiter. It mocked him, asking why he was still clinging to a human form he clearly didn't deserve. Alistair froze. The sigil flashed again, telling him to stop the act. "End the denial," it read. Then came the kicker. The god wanted to strike a new deal. Same old greed. Alistair knew exactly who he was dealing with now. The crowned god of the void himself was watching from the heavens. The next message was a death sentence. The god promised to end Alistair's life. Again, but Alistair didn't flinch. Not a chance. "I'll find you," he hissed at the empty air. "And when I do, I'm going to tear your throne down." The challenge was accepted. Then the sigil vanished into thin air. Reality set in. If the world reset, he'd lose Alara forever. She was the only thing holding his humanity together, and the threat of losing her again was very, very real. Alara stopped and looked back, realizing she was truly alone in the dark. Her brother hadn't followed. Fast forward a few days, the capital was buzzing with energy. The royal herald stood on a podium, shouting to the crowds. The day had finally arrived. The citizens were about to see their legendary knights plunge into the dungeons and slay monsters for sport. The entire kingdom of Oakhaven had been waiting for this moment. The solar tournament had officially begun. It was supposed to be a grand celebration of unity between the noble houses, but everyone knew it was just a chance to see the knights draw blood. Alistair looked around at the flags and the cheering crowds. It felt less like a celebration and more like the ancient, brutal games of old. The public was obsessed. To them, these knights weren't just soldiers, they were icons. Movie star heroes in shining plate armor. The whole point of the solar festival was PR, making the brutal business of monster hunting look noble and friendly. Lady Beatrice, however, noticed something was off with Alistair. She set her tea down, her sharp eyes scanning his face. "All right, spill it," she demanded. As the Order's vice commander, she guessed he'd had another falling out with Sir Cedric. They both looked miserable enough for it to be true. But Alistair had something else on his mind. He asked Beatrice to help him find a secluded manor, somewhere far away from the city's noise. She looked at him like he'd grown a second head. But when he mentioned the message from the Void God, her face went pale, complete shock. Alistair wasn't 100% sure, but he felt it in his bones. The Eternal Arbiter was coming for his head, and he was coming soon. He didn't know if he could win this fight, but he knew one thing: Alara couldn't be anywhere near it. Beatrice was losing her mind. To her, none of this made any sense. Vanishing from his sister's life to protect her. It sounded like a bad tragedy, but 𝒉𝒂𝒂 was dead serious. He truly believed Alara didn't need a monster like him. Like she said, the 𝒉𝒂𝒂 she loved died in the abyss and never came back. Maybe I should have stayed dead, he muttered. That was the last straw. Beatrice didn't hesitate. She wound up and punched him right in the face. I hate getting messy with other people's family drama, she growled. But if my brother said something that stupid, I'd knock his teeth out too. She leaned in, her eyes blazing. You think you're protecting her? You don't know your sister at all, you idiot. A messenger interrupted them, looking for Sir Cedric, but stumbled into a very awkward scene instead. Beatrice told 𝒉𝒂𝒂 to stay put while she dealt with the official. 𝒉𝒂𝒂 just sat there, stunned into silence. For the first time in a long time, he'd been hit with a massive reality check. The trumpets blared. The opening ceremony was starting. First up was Lord Julian of House Dawn, a legendary paladin and the head of the Aurora Order. Right beside him was Victor of the Twilight Vanguard, a high-tier rogue. Someone in the crowd whispered that those two used to be brothers in arms. Now, rivals. A man approached Beatrice, extending a hand in greeting. For a second, you could see the sheer fury in her eyes, but she masked it with a polite, cold smile. Look at you, she remarked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. The little boy who took my spot has actually grown up a bit. Sir Percival bristled at the insult, but his commander held him back. Percival shot back, mocking Beatrice for babysitting a weakling rookie like 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒂. Then he leaned in, dropping a lethal threat. He promised to sever every bond she had left, just like before. He expected her to flinch, to break. Instead, she just smirked. I'll take that as a compliment, she replied. She wasn't scared. She was accepting the challenge. The solar tournament was officially live. The first match kicked off with a roar from the crowd as the blades started clashing. A warrior unleashed a flurry strike, his spear moving like a blur of steel. Across from him, a young knight struggled to keep her shield up, the impact of the blows rattling her teeth. The warrior saw his opening. He lunged, his spear finding the gap in her defense. One final strike and it was over. Defeat. The games had truly begun. The fifth duel comes to a brutal end with a knight from House Thorn taking the win. Even with a dull, practiced spear, he manages to gut his opponent. Absolutely savage. Lord Alaric looks on, unimpressed. The fight dragged on way too long for his liking, especially against a commoner he considers beneath his notice. Lady Alinor can't stand it. To her, his arrogance is just suffocating. Finally, the Lord decides he's had enough and heads for the exit, hoping the next bout actually provides some sport. Alinor just watches him go, her mind racing. Waiting at the gate is her right-hand man, Silas. Silas leans in, asking when they can finally dispose of Lady Beatrice. Alaric tells him to keep his shirt on. Her time is coming, and soon. Right now, he's got his eyes on Seraphina. He wants to introduce himself. Just then, the herald announces the start of the archers' gauntlet. The crowd goes wild. Everyone's dying to see the elite marksmen in action. The announcer turns to the booth, asking who's the one to watch. The commentator doesn't hesitate. He's betting on Lady Seraphina. She's young, she's talented, and she's been crushing the ranks lately. Even after that horrific accident back at Bloodwood Keep, it's a miracle she's even here. But not everyone's a fan. Some of the men are whispering, wondering why a failure was put in charge of the squad. Seraphina hears every word. She spins around, eyes blazing. If you've got something to say it to my face. Silence. The two gossips can't even look her in the eye. They tuck their tails and vanish like cowards. But behind that tough act, Seraphina is falling apart. The mental strain is hitting her hard. She hasn't spoken a single word to her brother, Julian, since that dark day. Just the thought of him sends her heart into a spiral. Then a message, someone's here to see her. She braces herself, heart hammering, but it's just Lady Alinor. Are you holding up? The lady asks. Seraphina can't hide the disappointment. Seraphina is suspicious. Why is the vice leader here? Alina just shrugs, claiming she's just there to cheer on the troops. She mentions she was going to bring Julian along, but the man pulled a disappearing act. Alina sees the flash of pain in the girl's eyes. She hit a nerve. She knows exactly what Serafina is going through. Alina's advice: talk to him before it's too late. Why do you care? Serafina snaps. To her, Alina is just a puppet master, shamelessly pulling Julian's strings. She blames the lady for everything. Her brother finally had a shot at a normal life, and now he's back in this world of blood and steel. To her, Julian never belonged in this life. Why seek out more power? Why become a monster? It just doesn't add up. One thing is certain: her brother is hiding something dark. Tears start to well up. He isn't the boy she grew up with anymore. Now he's just cold, distant, a complete stranger. The trumpets blare, the trial is starting. Serafina asks to be excused, apologizing for her outburst. But before she leaves, Alina drops a bombshell. He didn't want to change, Serafina. She admits she's seen that same look before. She knows the exact suffering Julian endured. Alina reveals the truth. He fell into a living hell and crawled his way out. You don't spend that long in the dark and come out normal. And the last thing he wants: for his little sister to see the shadow he's become. It hurts. Why is she hearing this from a stranger and not her own blood? It feels like he doesn't trust her at all. Unlike Alina, who stands on the same bloody ground he does. Serafina walks away, leaving Alina to glance toward the shadows. He was there. Julian had been listening to every single word from the start. He won't admit it, but he's obsessed with her safety. He'd never abandon her. Alina watches him, thinking his stubborn streak is exactly like Lord Alaric's. She grabs him, practically yelling. She's not a little girl anymore, Julian. Be honest with her for once. Secrets are poison. Alina knows that hiding the truth will only destroy what's left of their bond. Follow me, she commands. I'm going to show you a side of Serafina you've never seen. A flare shoots into the sky. It's go time. Figures move through the stone ruins. In a heartbeat, the two noble houses are going to clash. 6 against 6. Lord Alaric is watching, and for once he looks on edge. He's prepared something special for this little game. And now, it begins. The magic stones buzz with voices. Target found, says a voice named Charlie. Another squad reports they're engaged in combat 200 meters away. Serafina is a mess. All she can think about is the fight over her brother. The anger is just boiling over now. What really stings is that he turned to Alina instead of her. Orders fly in about a pursuit, but she's miles away, trapped in her own head. Then there, an enemy. Her team shouts that he's out of range. Don't take the shot. 300 meters. That's an impossible distance for a sniper, but Serafina doesn't care. She pours pure magic into her arrow, drawing the string to the breaking point. The target sees the glimmer, but it's too late. Way too late. The arrow finds its mark, and the 6th member of House Thorn is out of the game. Confirmed, she says coldly. Her team, they're absolutely speechless. Serafina is done being looked down on. She remembers being a child, when everyone looked at her with that pathetic pity because she lost her family. They told her they never even found her brother's body, but she never believed them. She knew he was alive. And then she saw it. A herald on the magic screens announcing a great shift in the world. Everything was about to change. The goddess dropped a bombshell. Humanity had to evolve or die. Between the rising gods, the monsters, and the deadly dungeons, Alara was more certain than ever that her brother, Arthur, was still alive out there. Then came the day of the royal aptitude test. She was sorted into the archer class and snagged a full scholarship to the Royal Hunter Academy. But the moment she arrived, some highborn brat poured a carton of milk right over her head. They treated her like dirt for being a common orphan. The noble students were absolutely livid that a pauper like her got to attend their prestigious school for free. But before the bully could say another word, crack, a heavy metal lunch tray slammed right into the side of his head. Alara told them to stop being jealous. Once their parents kicked the bucket like hers did, they would finally understand. When the boy kept barking, she challenged him to a duel right then and there. And that is how she graduated at the very top of her class and joined the legendary Order of Aurora. Suddenly, a cobalt beast lunges from the brush. 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒏𝒈 uses her bow to block the claws while desperately reaching for the tip of her last arrow. She manages to grab it and drives the jagged steel into the beast's throat. Once again, just like always, she had to save her own life. Commander Leander shows up a few minutes late, offering help she clearly does not need anymore. He asks for the rookie's name, and she looks him dead in the eye. Alara. Because she caught the commander's eye, she was fast-tracked into the leadership council while she was still just a teenager. And man, the veterans absolutely hated that. But in the end, this entire struggle was just a step toward her ultimate goal. 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒏𝒈 needed to be stronger. She had to survive in this world without Arthur and make sure her mind never, ever faltered. That is why she constantly pushes herself until her body breaks. She clutches her necklace, staring at the family photo hidden inside, her only link to the past. Sometimes it felt like it was all for nothing. She felt abandoned because Arthur had joined Leander's circle. Her brother was a titan, sure, but 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒏𝒈 was not exactly a weakling either. After a quick vent, she finally calms down. The surrounding forest is quiet, unusually quiet. 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒏𝒈 taps her comms to report a change in position. That is when she sees it. A literal rain of arrows arching through the sky, aimed right at her. She gets hit, direct target. Somewhere in the trees, a hidden unit reports that their mark has been successfully located. Thankfully, the arrow missed her vital muscles. The weird part, these were supposed to be blunt training tips, and technically they were. But these guys were playing for keeps with real weapons. The enemy leader reports that there is zero signal in this area. No one is coming to save her. 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒏𝒈 actually finds that funny. Save her. She has never needed a rescue a day in her life. First, she rips the arrow out and chucks it away. Then, she readies her bow and gives the command, "All of you, come at me at once." The leader gives the signal. Another volley floods the sky, but they hit nothing but dirt. 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒏𝒈 leaps right over the barrage like a shadow. She triggers her archer skill. The bow tip glows with magic, multiplying her arrows instantly. This time, she is the one unleashing a storm of death from above. She misses one guy because of her wound, but that survivor. He just freezes. He is watching his entire team get wiped out in 3 seconds. He never thought someone could do this much damage with training arrows at close range. It was completely insane. Snipers are long-range specialists. Marksmen lock down a single zone. But rangers, they are the most agile killers on the field. Even with the stabbing pain in her side, 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒏𝒈 is ready to finish the job. Seizing an opening, another enemy lunges from the dark. She dodges with a hair's breadth to spare, using the momentum to strike back instantly. A burst of raw energy screams toward him, just barely grazing his skin. But wait for it, her ability works like a boomerang. While he is busy screaming insults at 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒏𝒈, he does not see the arrow curving right back at his skull. Thwack right in the back, another one down. Now the fight has turned into a final, bloody duel. They stare each other down, the air thick with the tension of battle. But then, the one she just shot, he stands back up. He takes the shot from behind. The arrow flies straight for 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒏𝒈, and the worst part is she has not even noticed he is still alive. But at the very last second, she remembers Arthur's voice, talking about the flow of ancient martial arts. Like a total master, she catches the arrow midair with her bare hand. The shooter is speechless. Then, 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒏𝒈 arrives like a bolt of lightning. She delivers one of the most brutal punches I have ever seen. That guy, yeah, he is not getting back up for a long, long time. 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒏𝒈 knows there is only one left. She is ready to break him, but the poor guy starts crying and surrendering on the spot. Suddenly, reinforcements arrive. Before he can even process it, the surrendering archer takes an arrow straight through the head. The team thanks 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒏𝒈 for her incredible work. She just sighs and tells them they took way too long to get there. By the end of the 6th round, the Order of Aurora is crowned the champion of the competition. The signal was dead, so nobody saw the chaos. But the word is out, 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒏𝒈 just soloed 4 top-tier elites at once. Even the judges who were talking trash earlier have to admit she is a beast. In the end, she makes it clear. She never wanted their help anyway. 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒎𝒊𝒏𝒈 actually has the gift of clairvoyance, a trick she learned from Arthur. High above, a 𝒂𝒗 circles the area, watching our girl like she is the star of the show. Commander Leander is practically glowing with pride, but you can tell Arthur is somewhere out there, smiling too. Julian jokes that 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒎💂 only survived because of those combat arts he taught her, but deep down, he realizes he barely knows his own sister anymore. He has to admit it, she's stronger than he thought. Still, our hero makes a silent vow. To him, she'll always be the little sister he needs to protect. Behind all the teasing and the tough exterior, he's actually incredibly proud of her. Julian believes the vision cast cut out before Lord Valerius could see the truth, but he was wrong. Valerius saw everything, every single forbidden technique she used. The next day at the royal fair, 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒎💂 is dying to hear her brother actually praise her. She wants to hear him say how well she did in the challenge. But Julian, he just plays it cool. He acts like the whole thing had absolutely nothing to do with him. 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒎𝒂 sighs, maybe to her brother, the legendary supreme knight with all those fancy titles. Her little struggle wasn't impressive at all, especially since her essence ran dry at the end. But that's not it at all. To him, she was magnificent. More than that, she's finally carving out her own legend. Julian finally opens up. He apologizes for keeping her in the dark, admitting he just wanted to be the big brother protector. The truth? He's still stuck on the memory of that little child she used to be. He was so focused on the past that he didn't even notice. She's grown into a powerful woman right before his eyes. Julian reveals the truth. He became a knight to hunt down the very person who dragged him into this world of shadows. He believes reaching the absolute peak level is the only way to do it, and he didn't want 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒎💂 caught in the crossfire. She just teases him back, saying it wasn't that hard to just be honest for once. She only asks for one thing, one promise, that her brother will never just vanish from her life again. She makes him say the words, every single one of them. For all this time, she felt abandoned. He wasn't being honest with her, and it hurt. Seeing the pain in her eyes, he finally gets it. That's why he seals the deal with a formal pinky promise, an oath between siblings. Oh, and one more thing before they go. His secret title isn't some generic rank. He's the Emperor of the Supreme Sword. Her reaction, go jump in a lake. Classic. But then the fair's bells ring. A warning to all, in 1 hour the great battle begins. Now it's our protagonist's turn to take the field. 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒎💂 looks at his gear and asks, are you seriously going out there wearing that outfit? It's comfy, he shrugs. But before leaving, he mentions something bothering him. It was strangely specific how that enemy group targeted her. 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒎𝒂 says house rivalries in the labyrinths are common. But even she admits this was the first time she saw them being so blatantly aggressive. To her, it just proves she's the ace of House Dawn. Hearing that confidence, Julian can only think one thing, they're definitely siblings. But it makes him go quiet, remembering the threat from the divine observer. Later, the Lady of House Dawn meets Julian in person. His word is his bond. He'll be the vanguard in the upcoming clash. Formalities over, the lady heads off to check on the rest of her knights. Julian wonders about this tactical genius boss he's heard about. Apparently the guy is only a level 60 knight, way weaker than her. As they part ways, she warns him via telepathy. Do not use those forbidden combat arts in the arena, not a single move. Julian thinks no one would even spot the difference, but he promises to behave. Before she leaves, he thanks her. Because of her help, he and 𝒉𝒂𝒓𝒎💂 are finally on good terms. Julian is visibly relieved to hear that. She gives him a final nod and wishes him good luck. With the bosses gone, the other knights swarm Julian. They've heard the rumors about the mysterious star rookie and want to talk. But Julian isn't listening to a word. He's stuck on one thought. Why did that syndicate group go after his sister? And then he shows up, the one person nobody wanted to see. Lord Valerius arrives, faking surprise at catching the team in a relaxed moment. Julian realizes the power behind House Shadow is the celestial god himself. This means Valerius isn't just a rival lord. He's someone who can't be underestimated for a second. Valerius claims he's just there for a friendly hello. No one buys it. Finally, he drops the act and says he's there to check out the star rookie personally. The leader of the enemy house greets Julian with a sharp, plastic smile. "We haven't met yet, have we?" It's a total lie, but Julian plays along. "First time seeing you, Lord Valerius." Valerius was waiting for Julian's energy to react, to give him a sign. But nothing, not a spark. He's genuinely confused. He was sure this rookie was the one who taught Alara those forbidden arts, but there's no proof. Julian recognizes the assistant instead. Out of pure politeness, he mentions it's a shame their relationship didn't progress further. Talk about a burn. Julian takes his shot. He personally thanks them for what happened to his sister during the night's trial. He makes it crystal clear, payback is coming. Valerius just smirks. "I'm dying to see you try." Julian doesn't care who this man is. They messed with his little sister. That's a line you don't cross. He promises the audience the greatest show they've ever seen before wiping the other house out. The announcer, hyped as hell, thanks the crowd for their patience. The moment we've all been waiting for is here. The great battle between House Dawn and House Shadow is about to begin. The crowd is going absolutely wild. Leading the charge for House Dawn is the rookie who's the hottest topic in the kingdom right now, the Vanguard himself. Step up the Vanguard of the Order, Arthur Sterling, the man leading the Iron Shield. Here is the twist. He is a complete outsider representing the house, a total mystery man. And trust me, that anonymity, that is his ace in the hole. Then we have got the Shadow Guard's heavy hitter, Julian the Fire King, a mage with charisma that literally burns. Arthur actually finds that Fire King title pretty cringe. And just like that, game on. Lord Alistair is hoping Julian can drag this out just to see what Arthur is really hiding. Julian knows exactly what the boss wants, and he is ready to deliver. But the fight barely starts, and Julian's opponent is already hovering in the air. Levitation. It is a simple spell, but the announcer thinks it is a pretty flashy way to open a duel. Even the Order's leader is looking a bit confused, but Lady 𝒆𝒏𝒈 knows Arthur is just being a show-off. Julian is a level 50 mage. He is a combatant roughly on the same tier as the kingdom's elite knights. Now, if our hero could use his true sword skills, this would be over in a second. But since he is stuck, using basic adventurer magic, things are about to get a lot more complicated. Arthur is currently level 53. The reality? He still lacks actual field experience as a mage, and on top of that, every noble in the stands is breathing down his neck. It is obvious Alistair is dying to see some legendary swordplay, but our hero, he is going to keep him waiting. Arthur makes the first move. In response, Julian snaps his fingers and conjures a magical barrier to lock things down. Even while defending, the mage thinks it is weird that his opponent is sticking to low-level spells. Julian just shrugs it off and burns the magic away with his own flames. The fire mage stays cool because he has still got a few tricks hidden away. See, there are 3 paths for a magic user in this kingdom. You have got your craftsmen who stay out of the mud, and your arcanists who master the elements. Then there is the warlock. They are more like supernatural entities than mages. Usually they are support, but a few of them learn how to drop some seriously deadly attacks. But for Julian, standing in the back and playing support just is not his style. He tells Arthur that if he has got something better to show, he should do it now. Then, boom, he lands an explosive kick right on our hero. Arthur is sent flying backward, feeling the raw heat of the flames licking at his skin. Then comes the blast. Julian is showing off a fire combat style he has been perfecting since he was a kid. Close quarters magic. Yeah, that is incredibly rare for a mage. Arthur used to think he was the only one who fought like this, but now it is clear why they feel so similar, and why Julian gave him such a bad vibe from the start. Julian gives one last warning before activating his ultimate ability. He demands to see every bit of power Arthur has. A massive fire dragon charges straight for him. But Arthur, he decides it is time for a little surprise of his own. With just a simple gesture, that massive fire spell is sliced clean in half. Julian hits the dirt face first. He has absolutely no clue how that was even possible. Even the announcer is losing her mind. All she can say is that the fire just evaporated, though some people in the crowd think it looked a bit different. To them, it looked like the flames were crushed by some kind of supreme force. The Dawn Coalition leader asks the Grand Knight what just happened. Even though she wants to kill him, all she can do is admit she is just as lost as everyone else. Lord Alistair is watching the whole thing in total silence, but you can tell he is right on the edge of losing his cool. The announcer shouts that even Julian's most powerful technique could not leave a single scratch on our hero. And that is exactly what is driving Julian crazy. Without thinking about the fallout, he loses it and charges at Arthur. Arthur just mocks him. Imagine losing your cool just because you realize there is a massive power gap between us. Embarrassing. Julian tries to land a kick but misses by a mile. He is blinded by rage now, throwing a flurry of punches that Arthur deflects like he is bored. Nobody watching this expected to see two mages having a gritty street brawl at close range like this. Arthur points out that Julian is so nervous, he is completely messing up his footwork. He is literally coaching him mid-fight, telling him his weight is on the wrong leg and to stop leaving himself open. To Arthur, this is not a fight, it is a circus act. Julian is spiraling. He cannot understand how Arthur is predicting every single move. But Arthur just tells him he has been practicing his forms for a long time. He asks one question, "Is this really all you have got?" He tells the kid he has the ego of a dragon, but the strength of an ant. Julian is fuming, swearing he is going to burn Arthur to ashes. At that moment, our hero backs off and gives him some space. The flames start rising, and they are not stopping. Julian swears he will win even if he has to burn himself alive to do it. It is time for the waltz of the 10 fire dragons. The flames surge forward all at once, but Arthur is not even taking this seriously. He admits the attack is a bit of a nuisance, though. The dragons swallow the entire arena, and the heat wave hits the stands like a furnace. Lady 𝒆𝒏𝒈 watches without jumping in, but even she is stunned. Not even this final blast could break through Arthur's barrier. Our hero just sighs. This is exactly why he hates dealing with prideful noble types. He is over being in this hot situation. He starts tossing those fire dragons around like toys until the entire inferno just vanishes into thin air. Sir Alistair Vance drops a cold warning. Roland should just walk away while he still can. Even the announcer is losing it. How is anyone this powerful? People are guessing. Gravity manipulation, they say. It has to be that right. Then Roland drops to his knees. The crowd is frozen. A power that controls gravity itself. That's terrifying. At that level, he's basically a god. Roland is wide open. One heavy blow to the gut and he's finished. He's sent flying. Alistair stands there, ready for the next one. Duke Sterling doesn't hesitate. He sends in his heavy hitter, Sir Cedric. The Duke isn't playing around. He orders his knight to bring out the secret weapon immediately. Out comes the Twilight Lance, a relic forged to guard the kingdom's skies. Cedric arrives, wielding the legendary Bane of Sorcerers. Rumor has it Cedric, never lost to a mage. But hey, there's always hope for the new guy, right? Alistair just hopes those flashy titles aren't a joke. Sterling is smirking. He's sure Cedric is going to end this streak. Fight on. Cedric kicks off his buffs and lunges. He's fast, but Alistair is faster. Dodge. You're in a rush, aren't you? Alistair mocks him. Then he conjures his mana orbs and hurls them straight at the knight. Boom. The whole arena vanishes under a cloud of blue smoke. But Cedric, not a scratch. He bursts through the smoke, closing the gap in a heartbeat. Alistair leaps back. This guy is relentless. Time to change the game. Alistair takes to the air. Cedric uses the lance to launch himself up like a rocket. Alistair raises a shield. Crack. The barrier shatters, and Alistair is slammed back into the dirt with bone-breaking force. Even Alistair has to give him credit. It's been years since someone actually put him on the ground. He stands back up, ready for round 2. Honestly, 𝒂𝒐𝒍 thinks this would be a breeze if he could just use his old-school martial arts. He respects the hustle, sure, but it's time to show the Duke what a real monster looks like. The weight of the world hits. Cedric almost buckles under the sudden gravity, but Sterling, he's just sitting there, amused. Cedric plants his lance. He's fighting it. Step by step, he starts walking through the crushing pressure. Gravity magic won't save you, Cedric shouts. He's actually doing it. He's ready to crush 𝒂𝒐𝒍, but 𝒂𝒐𝒍, he's laughing. Gravity? Who said I was using gravity? One flick of the wrist. Cedric is suddenly dragged across the arena floor and smashed into the wall. Armor shattered. Silence follows. Duke Sterling is stunned. The commentators, totally speechless. They have no idea what just happened. No way that was just gravity. The crowd is losing their minds. What kind of power is this guy hiding? 𝒂𝒐𝒍 is impressed Cedric is still breathing. He finally reveals it. The inversion of sovereignty. It's a rare gift. Absolute control over attraction and repulsion using his own mana flow. Push, pull. It's simple, really. He mocks the knight by flicking a small stone right at his head. Big mistake, Cedric growls. He crawls out of the rubble, claiming 𝒂𝒐𝒍 messed up by letting him get close. Sterling leans over to Lady Alina. He explains exactly why Cedric is the ultimate counter to mages. It's all about his unique trait. If 𝒂𝒂𝒍 only has magic, he's dead. Cedric's hand reaches out. Sterling is calling it game over. Alina is terrified. Then, a system alert flashes before 𝒂𝒂𝒍's eyes. Magic disabled, 10 seconds. Even 𝒂𝒂𝒍 is caught off guard by this one. The order comes from the top. Use the counter sigil. Cedric didn't want to show this in public, but he has no choice. The Duke thinks 𝒂𝒂𝒍's power is a threat to the kingdom. He's too dangerous to be left alive. The order is simple. Kill him. 𝒂𝒂𝒍 sees the strike coming and barely dodges the lethal blow. Sorcerer's silence, Cedric declares. This is why no mage can ever touch him. The audience is in shock. Sterling thinks 𝒂𝒂𝒍 was too soft, and now he's paying for it. Alina is devastated. Alina screams at him through the comms. Run, don't reveal your martial secrets. But 𝒂𝒂𝒍, he's not a fan of running. Cedric prepares the finishing move. There's nowhere to hide, he warns. A strike that could level a fortress is coming. Cedric leaps, but 𝒂𝒂𝒍, he's not planning on losing today. He's had enough of people telling him what he can and can't do. 𝒂𝒂𝒍 releases his soul pressure. Alina and Sterling feel the vibration in their very bones. One of the leaders actually looks physically ill. Duke Sterling is shaking. This energy, it's the legendary Celestial King's aura. A tremor like the world is ending. Cedric tries to keep moving, but the energy is crushing him. He finally realizes he's in over his head. Total confusion. His skill was active, but he didn't have a single clue what was actually happening to him. Before he can even blink, chains of pure energy bind him tight. Arthur calmly explains that this isn't some magic spell, it's the old ways of martial arts. If he's that curious, he should go ask Lord Alaric. Arthur admits he almost lost his cool the moment he heard someone shouting at him to run. Absolutely absurd. He's actually impressed Gareth can even see what's going on. It's a technique called the Soul Blade, a level 40 power. But the blade itself, it's nothing more than raw willpower made manifest. At the peak of this power, a master could end a life with a mere thought or split the very heavens and the earth. But honestly, it'd be boring if it all ended this quickly. The chains snap back, releasing the knight. Arthur wants to teach them all a lesson they won't forget. He lands a devastating blow. With one single strike, Gareth is absolutely destroyed. The knight is sent spiraling through the air. Our hero just hopes Alaric is watching this very closely, because he won't want to forget what he's seeing. This is the true power of the martial arts. Gareth looks like a human missile soaring across the arena, every bone in his body, shattered by the sheer force of that one kick. Alaric is left completely speechless. His knight crashes far outside the arena, out cold before he even hits the ground. Arthur is feeling pretty satisfied. It's been a long time since he used his martial arts like this. And just like that, victory goes to Arthur. Arthur eventually withdrew from the remaining matches, claiming he was out of essence. But in the end, House Valerius took the festival victory, 3-2. Online, the world is buzzing. Everyone is talking about the mysterious rookie. And word is he's as strong as Lord Alaric himself. It's a massive blow that caused House Thorn to plummet in the rankings, while House Valerius climbed to the #1 spot. The assistant is terrified for his leader. He calls out to him, but there's no response. Alaric is alone in a room where every single thing has been shattered by his own blind rage. He's in total shock. Not only was he paralyzed with fear, but he was completely humiliated in front of the entire kingdom. The power he witnessed, even for a split second, made it clear. Alaric cannot defeat him, not as he is. Now the Lord will resort to extreme measures. From now on, the gloves are off. He finally steps out of the wreckage and calls for his assistant. He has a destination in mind. They're going to meet the High Arbiter of War. A week flies by, and the Valerius marketing team is still getting hammered with hundreds of calls about Arthur, even though he isn't even part of their guild. One caller even has the nerve to ask if Lady Alara is in a relationship with the rookie. That suggestion, it makes the young man incredibly irritated. Inside the meeting room, you can hear the staff shouting in pure frustration. One employee reports they've had 328 calls asking about Arthur and over 800 letters addressed to him. Most of it is from reporters and knights wanting to join Arthur's order, but there are sponsors and endless invitations for the silver screen too. Just as Arthur instructed, every single one of them was rejected. Well, except for one. At the very end of the report, someone shouts from outside that they need the chief secretary's attention right now. And the man doesn't look even slightly excited to deal with that headache. Alara turns to Arthur, asking if he's actually enjoying being world famous. Arthur says he hates all the noise. He tells her she should probably thank her secretary for all the insane work he's doing. Maybe it's a bit late, but Alara wants to apologize. She admits she tried everything to stop him from using the old ways, and she confesses it was mostly out of her own ego. But there was another reason. She was genuinely worried about him. Arthur tells her she underestimated him. She actually thought he'd lose control. In truth, he doesn't give a damn whether Alaric saw him use martial arts or not. He figures the leader of House Thorn felt the massive difference in their power. For that reason, he'll probably leave them alone for a while, though Arthur is the one who wants to hunt them down for what they did to his sister. For a second, Alara shows a hint of satisfaction. Changing the subject, she notes that House Thorn is now severely weakened. Alaric has vanished, and even the factions that were neutral before are begging to join House Valerius. Her house is now the best in 𝒂𝒗𝒊𝒏𝒈, and it's all thanks to him. This is an official thank you from the vice leader to the head of the vanguard. Arthur is just happy to see his friend, finally acting like her normal self again. They shake hands, and he adds that he'll be in her care for a little while longer. Our hero checks the time and realizes it's getting late. His sister is probably already starting to worry about him. Before he goes, Alara asks why he accepted the invitation from the Isle of Avalon Alliance when he turned down everyone else. First, he's tired of the dungeons in this region, and his level isn't moving anymore. Besides, the Isle of Avalon is the perfect spot for a family vacation. Arthur says his goodbyes and tells her he'll be back in a month. But if our hero knew what was waiting for him in the future, he never would have set foot on that island. At the skyport, Cecilia looks ecstatic. His sister is absolutely thrilled to have arrived on the Isle of Avalon. She says it's her very first time. Just looking at her, it's clear Arthur is happy to see his sister doing so well. But while they're debating what to do first, a voice calls out to our hero. It's the Order of Tama. The welcome committee leaves our hero stunned. There's a thick, awkward tension in the air, so they just decide to ignore the guy for now. This guy is fast. Before anyone can react, he's right there, grabbing Arthur's hand in a grip that's impossible to shake. He introduces himself as Commander 𝒂𝒐𝒍, the head of the Wardens of the Isle. Catherine is absolutely floored. This kid is barely out of his teens and already a high-ranking commander. To make things weirder, he's a total fanb, practically begging Arthur for an autograph. Arthur, he's done. He just wants to turn around and head back to the Sterling estate. 𝒂𝒐𝒍 recognizes Catherine as the famous lady of the house and the sister of his idol. But before the fangirling gets out of hand, his advisor reminds him they're on a schedule. No time for pleasantries. They're already behind, so the details of the mission will have to wait until they're on the move. Arthur is not thrilled about being hauled away like luggage, but 𝒂𝒐𝒍 doesn't care. He's already dragging him toward the carriages. While he promises a grand tour later, eyes are watching from the shadows. A mercenary whispers into a magic stone. Arthur Sterling has finally stepped onto the Isle of Wyvern. His contact tells him to shut up and speak the common tongue or he'll blow their cover. The man stands up, looking completely miserable. He grumbles about his vacation being cut short. Then, he tells his men it's go time. He set a deadly trap for Arthur, the island, and the entire Warden Order. Suddenly, a massive beaming smile greets the group. Meet Sir Oswald, the other leader of the Wardens. He's all warmth and welcomes, even asking his nephew to bring out the special gift they've prepared for the nobles. Catherine's expecting some rare, royal delicacy from the island's coast. Oswald promises that one taste will change her life forever. The grand reveal, a single fresh orange. Yeah, the disappointment is absolutely cosmic. Catherine looks ready to burn the whole place down right then and there, but Arthur holds her back before she starts a war. The Warden leaders apologize for jumping straight to business, but the situation on the island is reaching a breaking point. 𝒂𝒐𝒍 explains that they rejected the king's knight system and formed their own independent order to protect the coast. They wanted to stay neutral, but then Tier 11 dungeons started appearing. We're talking monsters so strong only rank 40 knights can even stand a chance. The problem? The Wardens don't have anyone that strong. Every elite knight is already signed to the major noble guilds. Arthur doesn't get it. If the monsters stay inside the caves, why not just leave them there to rot? But 𝒂𝒐𝒍 shakes his head. It's not that simple. If they abandon the dungeons, they lose their land rights and the major guilds will move in and crush them. They've bled too much to lose their home now. They were at the end of their rope, but then a literal ray of hope appeared. They saw the news of Arthur Sterling's exploits. A high-rank knight who doesn't answer to any house. He was exactly what they needed. Arthur listens to this whole sob story and can only think one thing. These people are completely insane. The two commanders are practically weeping with gratitude, but Arthur keeps it strictly business. He's only here to grind some experience and level up. He's ready to dive into the first dungeon immediately, but Catherine tells him to hold his horses. To her, there's a crisis far more important than monsters. Arthur's confused, but her priority is clear. She's not moving until she gets some roasted boar and silverfin trout. Later, deep inside a dungeon, a massive explosion rocks the walls. The Warden Knights are locked in a desperate struggle. One warrior is losing his mind. None of his attacks are even scratching these cinderblight apes. The beast lunges, spewing toxic flames from its maw, but a shield knight throws himself into the line of fire. "Hold the line," the warrior yells, but it's useless. The venom is so corrosive it's eating through the magic barrier. This stuff is lethal. It melts solid stone like butter. They never expected the beasts to be this powerful. Their defense is crumbling. Every second they stay in this fight, the closer they get to a total wipeout. They're done for, until a bolt of pure energy drops from the trees, pulverizing the entire pack of monkeys in an instant. Arthur lands, mocking the pathetic name of the creatures. Cold. The surviving warrior can only stare in awe as his savior descends. 𝒂𝒐𝒍 is right behind him, shouting thanks while Catherine literally hauls him along like a sack of grain. He knows Catherine is fuming about being dragged into the dirt, so the young leader figures he'd better thank her too. Now that he's caught his breath, 𝒂𝒐𝒍 orders his knights to prepare. They know the drill, it's time to move. both leap into the fray. 𝒔𝒊𝒆🍐 is stunned. Arthur isn't just a swordsman. He's weaving mage techniques into his strikes like it's nothing. Arthur is curious about the kid's power. Turns out 𝒔𝒊𝒆🍐 is already level 40, putting him way ahead of Catherine, despite her being older. The rest of his squad isn't far behind either. They've been training like absolute demons to survive. Since they're the only ones guarding the island's dungeons, they've been forced to level up at an insane pace. Arthur admits the move he just saw was impressive. 𝒔𝒊𝒆🍐 beams, explaining it's a rare teleportation skill. It took the kid years to master, but Arthur just shrugs, says it didn't look that hard to learn. 𝒔𝒊𝒆🍐's jaw hits the floor. His idol just mastered his life's work just by watching it once. Lord Cedric is feeling pretty good about his build. He's convinced that dumping every available point into pure intuition was the ultimate pro move for his future. See, his sword mastery is already legendary, so he didn't need to waste any essence on physical stats. Instead, he channeled all 53 points straight into his mental perception. And honestly, it paid off big time. That's the exact reason he could read the complex magical flow of that teleportation spell like it was an open book. Cedric hates disappointing his crew, so he decides it's time to show off his new trick. He tells everyone to keep their eyes peeled, but, try not to be too shocked when he pulls it off. But nothing happens. Dead silence. A second later, the awkward truth hits him. The young commander, Arthur, wasn't even using the spell at that exact moment. Left with no other choice, he just asks the boy straight up how the mechanic works. Meanwhile, deep in the shadowed glades, the forest apes are just chilling, minding their own business. Suddenly, Arthur blinks into existence right in the middle of them. He gives a polite little hello, and the poor creatures just stand there, completely lost and confused. Then he says goodbye, and just like that, bam, the apes are teleported straight into the clouds. Gravity does the rest. Cedric has to admit, the kid's technique is actually pretty slick. Arthur explains the strategy is simple. He can wipe out entire battalions solo just by letting the fall damage do all the heavy lifting. His range is capped at 150 meters, but against most monsters, that's basically a death sentence. Plus, he can blink anything he sees into an empty space or move objects as long as they're within his physical reach. It's a broken build, for sure. Arthur says he's only sharing the secret because Cedric asked, but before he can even finish his sentence, Cedric just vanishes, right in front of his eyes. Our hero reappears instantly, explaining that after hearing the logic and watching Arthur do it once, the pieces just clicked. He's got the hang of it, though he admits he still needs a little more polish to get it perfect. With the demonstration over, the group finally settles down for a quick meal break. Lady Alinor immediately starts lecturing the squad for dropping their guard in such a high-threat zone. Arthur agrees she's right, but hey, they've worked hard. They deserve a snack. But Alinor is stubborn as a mule. She refuses to touch a single bite, keeping her hand on her sword instead. Arthur just shrugs and offers the rations to Cedric, marveling at how the man is already mastering the art of teleportation after seeing it once. While he eats, Cedric casually mentions that when you're already a master, picking up new tricks is child's play. Watching him humble brag, Alinor looks like she seriously wants to punch her brother in the face. She tells Arthur it's pointless to try and learn anything from Cedric. The man's path to power is on a completely different level. He's basically a freak of nature. Arthur sighs, reminding her that as the team leader, he can't afford to just get comfortable. Lately, he's been feeling like he's finally hit his limit. He quickly backtracks, apologizing for getting carried away. He didn't mean to turn the meal into a therapy session. It's just that even though the team trusts him with their lives, he can't shake this crushing feeling of being totally incompetent. He's terrified of getting lazy and becoming a liability. He starts to apologize again, but Alinor just reaches out and snatches the food right out of his hand. She tells him to shut up and eat. The rations are actually pretty good, and he needs to stop overthinking everything. Arthur is touched, obviously. While those two are having a moment, Cedric interrupts to ask how much longer they have to hunt these damn apes. They're fast, there are way too many of them, and Arthur's mana has a hard limit. He can't teleport them into the sky forever. Arthur's original plan was to just lure them out, but Aliner points out the obvious risk. The entire horde might just dogpile a single person and end the mission right there. But our hero, he's got a solution, and it's a big one. He brings up a skill called sovereignty. It's a rank B power that uses pure willpower to either crush a group's spirit or command absolute awe with just his presence. Cedric explains he picked it up back in the Airy dungeon, but honestly, bossing monsters around never seemed like that big of a deal to him until now. But here's the kicker. It affects the mind. Cedric figured out he could fuse it with his mind blade technique, allowing him to basically issue basic commands to the creatures. He'd actually forgotten he even had it, since he usually prefers just cutting things down himself rather than playing puppet master. But if he can combine these two skills, oh man, this time it's going to be incredibly useful. Cedric activates his telepathic domination. Ghostly threads of control weave through the trees, hunting for every single ape hidden in the forest. His command flashes in his mind, and with a surge of power, the skill awakens. Arthur and Aliner are looking at him like he's lost his mind, but Cedric just asks if the kid has enough mana for a few more blinks. Arthur says yes, sounding a bit worried. Cedric grins. That's good to hear, because he's pretty sure he just stirred up some serious trouble. Suddenly, the ground starts shaking. The other hunters think it's an earthquake, but in a magical dungeon. Impossible. There's only one explanation left. A stampede. One of the apes drops right in front of them, and for a split second, the shield-bearer feels relieved. But then he looks up. Dozens, no, hundreds of glowing eyes are staring down from the canopy. They're completely surrounded. The group is terrified by the sheer size of the horde. Cedric steps up, ordering Arthur to get the whole team out of there immediately. He'll take it from here. Arthur sees the look in his eyes. He knows exactly what it means. He nods and prepares to pull everyone back. But Aliner isn't having it. She completely disagrees with leaving a fellow knight to face an entire army alone. The apes are just waiting for the right moment to strike. Arthur shouts for Aliner to stay close. He doesn't have time to argue as the horde closes in. He ignites his power. Against her will, she's teleported away with the rest of the crew. Now, with the team safe, Cedric is finally the only one left. Time to cut loose. Sir Arthur Vance is finally cutting loose. He unleashes a torrential explosion of energy that just keeps expanding, growing more devastating by the heartbeat. From the sidelines, Lord Cedric watches the display in total awe. The entire squad is speechless. They can't even wrap their heads around a mere human wielding that much raw power. This pretty much confirms the whispers. To pull this off, the man has to be at least rank 60. Cedric asks the girl if Arthur was the one who lured the monsters in, but she's far too shaken to even give him an answer. Cedric understands. No matter how god-tier Arthur is, he's the only family she has left, so he tries his best to offer some comfort. The young lord tells her that her brother is a powerhouse and that nothing can touch him. All he asks is for her to have a little faith. But Cedric is completely off the mark. Beatrice is speechless, sure, but not for the reason he think. She's actually steaming. She's furious that Arthur is hogging all the experience for himself after promising they'd share. Cedric thought she was worried, but Beatrice says that doesn't even make sense. In this moment, Arthur Vance is probably the happiest man alive. Honestly, even our hero didn't expect his command range to stretch that far. By stacking his skills just right, he's basically turned himself into a monster magnet, making the grind way easier. And yep, it worked like a charm again. Arthur is just waiting for the next wave to arrive. All anyone can see are massive energy flashes, but then Lady Aliner feels a sudden chill. Something is wrong. Her secretary notices her distress and asks if she's all right. She says she felt something, like a sinister, evil laugh echoing in the air. Seeing that the situation is stable for now, she gets back to work. Her latest report states that Duke Blackwood, the leader of House Nightfall, hasn't stepped foot out of his manor lately. Even the ironclad mercenaries, are being suspiciously quiet. On the bright side, House Morningstar successfully secured the rifts that were under dispute. Looks like they won't have to deal with Nightfall's nonsense for a while. Still, Elinor is uneasy. Why is Blackwood staying so silent after being publicly humiliated on national television? She's terrified he's brewing something dark, but according to her secretary, they have a much bigger fire to put out right now. Elinor is visibly shaken. The news is about a high-risk rift that was just discovered deep within the Iron Peaks. We're talking a Tier 13 danger zone, minimum rank 60 required. And the terrain, a brutal, scorching desert. Easily the most lethal vault in existence. It's a wasteland of burning sand where the scouts didn't even see the threat coming. Building-sized insect abominations are crawling out of the sands, heading straight for the capital. There aren't many of them, but every single one is strong enough to require a top-tier knight to even stand a chance. The High Commander himself confirmed it. Elinor realizes it'll take the leader, the director, and herself just to form a team capable of handling this. Naturally, her mind drifts. In moments like this, she wishes Arthur were there. She's totally zoning out until her secretary snaps her back to reality. He's worried about his lady and suggests that if she's feeling unwell, it's better to just head home. Startled, she accidentally knocks over her tea, the porcelain shattering on the floor. Her secretary quickly moves to clean up the mess. She wonders if she's losing her mind, but mostly, she wonders when Arthur Vance is coming back. It's already been 15 days since they entered the Avalon crypt. Back in the crypt, the warrior is caught off guard by a sudden lunge coming from within the smoke. The creature is about to rip into him, but one clean strike ends the situation instantly. Arthur is still using himself as bait, and the group is taking turns finishing the beasts off. Beatrice is bickering with Cedric, though, because she thinks he's treating her like a child. Remember, the Knight evolution system doles out experience based on how much damage you actually deal to the beast. Ideally, our hero would stay out of it to let the others level up, but that's hard to do when you see your frontline tank running for his life. Sometimes, he's just forced to act. Arthur blinks right behind the boy and yanks him out of the death zone. The squire is literally in tears thanking him for the save. Seeing this, Arthur wonders if there's a skill to level up your courage. Cedric just uses the chaos as an opportunity to ignore the scolding he's getting. Plus, Arthur actually learned how to teleport. Everyone's losing their minds over it, but honestly, that wasn't even the skilled tree he wanted to focus on. Beatrice sighs, saying she finally gets it. Avalon's best features aren't the local fish or the fruit. She says this island is a goldmine for leveling, even if she only gained 3 ranks to reach 38. Cedric agrees, they're all growing incredibly fast. Arthur was actually worried his sister would find the constant training a bore. But apparently, clearing rifts counts as a tourist attraction for her. Then, Cedric drops the next mission, a request from House Sterling. The targets, monstrous bats with the heads of wolves. Hearing this, our hero looks, let's just say, uncomfortable. Gwendolyn asks about the terrain. Cedric confirms it's a deep cavern. No one notices, but Arthur is clearly getting twitchy. And here's the kicker. The group requesting the mission specifically asked that only Sir Arthur Vance take part in it. Apparently, this place is so pitch black that arrows and teleportation magic are completely useless. Hearing that, Sir Alistair feels insulted, like his skills are being underestimated, and he's visibly annoyed. Our hero smells something fishy, but he nods anyway. Honestly, both of them are clearly exhausted and just need to get this over with. He promises to wrap this mission up in record time, but the mere thought of entering a cave, it drags up horrific memories he'd rather keep buried forever. A man named Julian introduces himself to the protagonist, claiming to be the master of the Iron Vanguard and their official guide for the dungeon. Assuming Alistair already knows the mission details, Julian skips the small talk and leads him directly toward the gaping mouth of the cavern. Deep within the woods, a shimmering emerald portal flickers into view. Our protagonist stands before it, steadying his breath. Just the thought of entering a cave makes him way more uneasy than he anticipated. The walls feel like they're closing in already. But no matter what's waiting inside, he has to push through. Suddenly, crackle, Night Stalker hounds are getting fried by pure electricity. One of the knights accompanying the mission looks panicked, asking what the plan is since 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒂 is tearing through the dungeon way too fast. 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒂 coldly announces he's already cleared the zone. Julian just stares, admitting the hero is even more formidable than the rumors suggested. He says they need to keep following the trail until they reach the uncharted territory. Hearing that, 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒂 decides to crank up the speed even further. The guide even asks if 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒂 is actually all right, but he's met with stone-cold silence. But there's a real issue brewing under the surface. Even after all this time, those terrifying memories are clawing at his mind. Julian suggests they take 5 if he's feeling sick, but he's treading on thin ice. The man instantly regrets opening his mouth the moment he sees the look in 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒂's eyes. Once again, 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒂 snaps that he's fine, and this time he won't be repeating himself. Julian backs off fast, offering him a tonic pouch to calm his nerves. But 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒂 is spiraling. He needs to finish this before he loses control and destroys everyone there. The guide points out the path ahead is a bit tricky, but he claims to have it all mapped out. Still, their behavior, it's making them look incredibly suspicious. Or maybe 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 is just on edge. Julian mentions that the Whispering Vales are a way more beautiful place than these damp, miserable tunnels. He offers to take our hero there sometime, but 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 shuts him down immediately. Not happening. 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 just wants to know how much further to the goal, but at that very moment, his survival instincts scream a warning. A glowing magic circle ignites on the ceiling. The protagonist recognizes the spell instantly, a classic illusory maze trap. It's not deadly, at least, but once you're caught, you completely lose your sense of direction and end up wandering in circles. It looks like the others are already falling for it. But 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 notices something. The energy flow is deliberately funneling the group toward one specific location. For some reason, this is a whisper trap meant to confuse the mind. But who's the one pulling the strings? Whatever it is, 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 wants zero part of anything related to the other side, while he's trapped inside a cave. He takes a deep breath to calm his racing heart and decides to play along. He'll walk right into the trap to see who's actually behind this mess. Meanwhile, over at the Crimson Sands dungeon, sand beasts are causing absolute carnage. A commander shouts for everyone to stay sharp. The group leader casts a massive buff spell, forcing the creature to retreat back into the shifting dunes. One hunter thinks the beast is running away, but he's dead wrong. Another monster erupts from the sand, ready to launch a lethal strike. Their leader bellows for the squad to brace themselves. He wants to seize the chance and trap the beast so it can't escape again. The commander manages to pin the massive sand leviathan for a split second. He gives the signal, and that's when the vice captain takes her shot. With 2 blades flashing like lightning, Seraphina carves through the monster. Together with the squad, they finally secure the win. The guild master is ecstatic, boasting that as long as they're together, clearing this dungeon will be a total walk in the park. But Seraphina shuts him down. It's only easy for the 2 of them. The rest of the guild is already completely spent after only 3 monsters. The leader smirks, teasing that she probably wishes she was with 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 instead, especially since everyone says they're a couple. He regrets it instantly. She throws a sharp jab his way, telling him to shut his mouth and stop joking around. Changing the subject, Seraphina wonders why the other elites didn't show up. It would have saved them a lot of blood and sweat. But the leader explains they both had appointments they couldn't miss. Cut to 2 men standing watch near the Iron Gate Sanctum portal. Both claimed they had urgent business to handle. The guards are gossiping about seeing 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂's insane performance at the Sun King's festival. Suddenly, the guild's seneschal appears, tearing into them for not taking their job seriously and slacking off. They argue there's nothing to do, so why not have a quick snack while they wait? But the seneschal warns them, just because the Shadow Cabal has been quiet doesn't mean they've disappeared. A fight could break out any second. Right then, boom, Bursts of energy erupt from the tree line as a monosphere slams down and explodes. The seneschal realizes that was a magic-infused arrow. The real problem, no one was supposed to know this dungeon even existed. A shadow looms closer. Is it the Cabal? No, it's High Warden Silas, summoned all the way from the Dawn Order. He claims this was a shadow strike from the rival house. The steward's face pales. This could mean all-out war. He even considers rushing into the abyss to warn the High Knight and the Grand Mistress, but then, something clicks. Something is definitely wrong here. There is no way the steward could have known their position. He explicitly said he was heading to the capital on other business. But it's too late. Julian smiles, whispering that his dark mission is almost complete. The traitor signals his masters. He confirms Lord Cedric is joining the coup, relieved that Lady Beatrice has already handled the bloody details. And the one offering thanks. It's Lord Alistair on the other end of the line, the man pulling all the strings. When Alistair arrives at the scene, the treacherous knights bow low. He grins, absolutely loving the carnage they've unleashed. He praises the bowing stewards. To him, Lady Alara is hopelessly naive. She never even dreamed there were snakes within her own order. The truth, they were bought and paid for way back during the Sun King's Jubilee. Alistair steps over the bodies like they're trash. Alara remembers, 7 years ago, back in the abyss, he was just a novice getting started. His mind drifts back to when her friends used to call her name. She looked so genuinely happy in those days. Alistair snaps her back to reality. In his eyes, that group of weaklings is just dead weight holding them both back. He thinks Alara has lost her way, ignoring the only goal that matters, gaining absolute power as fast as humanly possible. He speaks of the war god's relic, an ancient jade that makes one's swordplay godlike just by wielding it. Serving that god would make them both legends, or so he claims, but Alara cuts him off before he can finish. Alara fires back. This kingdom isn't the savage lands. No one is hunting them here, so there's no need to seek power at the cost of their souls. She's happy just being with her friends. Her advice: forget the nightmare they endured in that other world. Her friends call again, and she leaves Alistair behind. He's stunned. He thought she was the one person who truly understood his pain. To him, he always felt like a mere side character, all because of these pathetic, weak people surrounding her. Later, mid-battle, Alistair cleaves a beast in two. Too easy. But then, he hears Alara scream in terror. One of her friends was actually tagged by a weak beast. Someone starts begging Alistair to get the girl out of the abyss immediately. The boy just keeps pleading and shouting. But Alistair ignores him completely. The kid doesn't understand why his comrade won't move. He just keeps begging for help. Alistair's mind is far away. No matter what he does, she never sees his sacrifice. She's still weak. She's forgotten the despair of the savage lands. In his twisted view, these insects are the problem. So Alistair decides to destroy every single thing that makes Alara weak. It's the only way to free her, he thinks, and he'll start by purging every one of Alara's pathetic friends. Alistair stands before the portal, looking completely vacant. Even the traitors are starting to wonder what's going on in his head. Suddenly, the High Knight appears. His orders: guard the entrance. If any member of House Aurora shows their face, eliminate them. Alistair mutters that he can sense Caspian nearby. It seems like their plan on the Isle is going perfectly. The High Knight grins. Sir Gareth has already begun to move. And trust me, no one escapes his traps. The High Knight already has a report ready, but Alistair shuts him down. He only cares about one thing. Once there in the abyss, he wants to finish Alara himself. The leader flinches for a second, but then nods. A contract is a contract, after all. Deep down, he knows he can't beat her alone. Alistair's eyes go cold. It's time to begin. They are elite knights, but today, the prey is House Aurora. Caspian, meanwhile, finds this entire place completely baffling. He followed the trail, but it led to a dead end. Even the guards are whispering. This definitely wasn't part of the plan. But our hero hears everything. Caspian steps forward, demanding they spill whatever they're hiding right now. The man tries to play it off as nothing. Bad move. Losing his patience, Caspian grabs him by the face. Caspian isn't looking away anymore. If this rat wants to walk out of this cavern alive, he'd better start talking. One of his companions notices something. Off. Something so strange it leaves even Caspian speechless. A mysterious voice echoes out, joking about almost missing its cue. One of the lackeys whispers, "Everything is ready." "It's a pleasure to finally meet you," the voice sneers. Caspian looks up. There's a magical explosive strapped to the wall. That's the source. Caspian is actually at a loss for words. And then, boom, the whole place goes up. Somewhere else, Alara gets a sickening feeling in her gut. She tries to shake it off. She has to focus on the mission. She spots 4 beasts closing in, but then she hears it. A massive explosion right where her team was supposed to be resting. The Grand Mistress of Aurora is deep in the fray, but the enemy mage manages to slip away from her strike. The mercenary sees his opening. He lunges at Captain John while his guard is down, but the captain isn't finished yet. He pours every ounce of strength into one desperate counterstrike. But the mercenary is too quick and slips away. This is bad. Honestly, John is in the worst spot imaginable right now. Dealing with the Beastmaster was already a nightmare, but fighting both of them at once, it's a slaughter. And Lord Alistair, he's just standing there enjoying the show. The leader of House Morningstar is completely out of moves. Then, Alistair actually starts clapping for the performance. Talk about a cold-blooded villain. He mocks John, apologizing for ever underestimating him. John just spits back that he never imagined his greatest rival would turn out to be such a snake. John demands to know how they even got in here. What happened to the elite knights who were supposed to be guarding the vault entrance? Alistair just laughs at the question. I mean, come on. The answer is staring him right in the face. It hits him. The vault's location was a state secret. There's a rat in the order. John swears on his life he'll find the traitor and carve them to pieces. The dark mage sneers, noting that his prey has quite a bit of willpower left. But then, something absolutely horrific happens before anyone can blink. One of John's young squires is cut down with a lethal blow. He's on the ground, reaching out and begging for help. John has to listen to the boy pleading for his life, and it's gut-wrenching. The enemy knight steps forward, ready to end the struggle for good. All John can do is scream in pure, helpless frustration for his fallen comrade. Alistair is still talking trash, calling the scene heartbreaking with a smirk. Then he drops the line, "Insects are just a burden to the strong." What a jerk. Lady Alina suddenly appears to squash the insect, but the kid, Julian, is quick. He rolls just in time to dodge the impact. Julian sneers that the old lady came back for more. Alistair pretends to be hurt, saying he actually missed his old friend Alina, even if she hates his guts. To Alina, he's just barking nonsense again. She makes a cold promise. Those will be the last words he ever speaks in this life. Alistair signals his lieutenant to handle her. Suddenly, it's a blur of steel. The two of them exchange strikes so fast you can only see the flash of their blades. They both land hits, stumbling back from the force. But Alina, she ends up with a fresh cut right across her cheek. She doesn't waste a second, lunging back and forcing him away. Pure rage takes over the boy. In his anger, he actually manages to stop himself from being pushed back. But she's already on top of him. She mocks him, saying he was always just a brat who didn't even know how to hold a dagger properly. He desperately switches the blade to his other hand, but the slash misses by a mile. She just stands there, calling him reckless. Still, Alina knows he's a wild animal, so she's playing it safe, all while keeping a sharp eye on her squad. Their leader is completely surrounded now, but man, he's still fighting like a lion. Alina figures he can hold out for a bit, but he's not the real problem. She glares at the Great Duke, who's actually waving at her. He's definitely plotting something nasty. Alistair notes to himself that Alina has gotten way stronger than he ever expected. He figures the massacre at the Isle of Mist is wrapping up. The Lord of Nightshade is probably hoping Arthur is already pushing up daisies by now. Suddenly, a blinding light erupts from under the rubble. Boom! An explosion rocks the cavern, and Arthur stands up, absolutely burning with the desire for payback. The others who were with our hero somehow survived the blast, too. But even they're looking around, totally confused about what just happened. Then there's Arthur. He is not happy. Not only is he stuck in a cave, but he actually had to use his brain to get out of that one. All because of a stupid bomb. One of the men trying to play nice asks if our hero is hurt. He even pretends he has no clue what's going on. Honestly, he really shouldn't have done that. Suddenly, the man is hoisted into the air by an unseen force and then slammed back down. Arthur wants to settle this fast. He wants the truth. It's blindingly obvious this was an ambush set up ages ago. "Stop acting like I'm a fool," Arthur says, his eyes cold as ice. Slowly, the fear starts to sink in. The man starts shaking until he finally breaks down in tears. He cries that he doesn't know anything because they got caught in the explosion, too. Out of patience, our hero decides it's time to use his mind control. This will be the first time he's ever used this power on a human. If the guy's mind gets shattered, well, that's not Arthur's fault. A dark, terrifying shadow begins to creep over the man's head. The truth spills out. House Nightshade has been paying them off for years to keep the island under their thumb. Then, one day, an arrogant stranger showed up. The man introduced himself as Alistair's younger brother. All they knew was that he was a deadly sellsword from the Far East. But it was clear this guy was the real deal. They were simply following Sir Gareth's orders to the letter. Their only job was to lure Arthur to this specific spot. Our hero knows signals don't work inside this vault, meaning Gareth is still in this cave with them. Arthur tries to sense him, but there's nothing. Maybe the shadow has already slipped away. This is becoming one massive headache. Arthur tells one of the guys to move over because he's standing in the line of fire again. "Move, kid." A massive blast of energy shoots from his hand, slamming into the rocks and causing a huge explosion. A hidden tunnel opens up in the wall. The others are just relieved they can finally go home and take a hot shower. But Arthur, he's not going anywhere. He doesn't like leaving loose ends. He lets his energy flare, making the entire cave glow with power. The heavy stones rumble, sealing the cavern entrance shut. They're begging, screaming for mercy, but Sir Cassian Hayne, he just walks away without a second glance. Every man for himself in this cold world. Now that he knows House Twila is pulling the strings, it's time to go loud. Meanwhile, out in the scorched wastes, Lady Alara finds herself in a seriously tight spot. Her opponent is spamming phantom projections, and honestly, it's working. Jensen tells her to wipe the blood from her lip before he unleashes his ultimate dance of the void. First, he tries to get inside her head, playing mind games to throw her off balance. He clearly knows his way around a blade, but Alara isn't buying the hype. She calls it nonsense, claiming she never planned to use her true power on someone as weak as him. A total waste. To her, he's just not worth the effort. That sends him into a blind rage. He lunges back into the fray, and Alara decides it's time to show him how a real brawler gets it done. She's about to give him a master class in brutality. Suddenly, the desert goes deathly still, just a few streaks of crimson blurring through the heat. Jensen is hot on her heels, but damn, she's fast. She's literally vaulting over his shadow clones like they're nothing, and Jensen, he can't take his eyes off her. His clones strike, shattering a massive boulder right next to her. Alara loses her footing for a split second, and just like that, he's got her surrounded. The girl actually cracks a joke, calling him one of Lord Percival's annoying little lapdogs. But then, boom, a flash of light cuts through the darkness. Jensen didn't even see her move as she carved through his ranks. But wait, something's wrong. She senses a sudden shift in the air. She spins just in time to see him closing in. He triggers his hidden technique, a lethal, poisonous strike. Even someone as sharp as Alara didn't see that coming. She puts some distance between them, but the damage is done. That one touch, it's already corroding her steel blade. She lands hard, scanning the perimeter. The reality hits her. One more slip-up and this fight is over. Realizing the danger, Alara actually drops her weapons. The commander notes that Jensen changed his whole style. He used to be obsessed with using twin daggers just like hers. Jensen says that's all thanks to her. Apparently, she was the one who taught him the secret to becoming the kingdom's deadliest assassin. Alara is internally panicking because she needs to find the real body, but she keeps her poker face on. She just shrugs and says she doesn't remember a thing. That clearly hurts his feelings, but he promises he'll jog her memory by forcing her to perform the dance of the void. Alara tells him he's getting really tedious. Seriously, how many times does she have to say he's too weak to handle that technique? Truth is, she's hoarding her mana for Lord Percival, which obviously pisses Jensen off. Then, bam, a clone gets the drop on her, striking her right in the back. It takes her back. She remembers underestimating this kid, a little crybaby Lord Percival raised from the dirt. A boy who fought exactly like she did. Jensen was absolutely terrified that day, the only one lucky enough to survive a run-in with her. To Alara, his very existence is just irritating. She closes the gap, presses a blade to his throat, and whispers the real secret of an assassin. You've got to hit them from the bottom of your heart. But before she can finish it, reinforcements come over the horizon. Alara decides she's bored and just walks away. But before she vanishes, she leaves him with one last piece of advice. Jensen isn't built for this life. She tells him to quit while he's ahead, calling him nothing more than a cheap, pathetic knockoff. Jensen admits that after that humiliation, he burned every technique she taught him. He started from zero just to surpass her shadow. He used to idolize Alara, but that all died that day. The thing is, she was right. His pure obsession made him the strongest in the world. Suddenly, the landscape starts to twist and warp. Jensen looks absolutely horrified by what he sees. Alara steps out of the shadows. In the end, you still obey me. She tells him he really should have listened and quit years ago. Jensen didn't realize she'd used a phantom projection of her own. Now, Alara is ready to give him his very last lesson. You only show your claws when it's time to kill. Jensen's final breath is a desperate scream of her name, Alara Thorn. And that's it. That's his end. Just a cheap imitation and a fool until the very last second. Suddenly, a voice echoes through the clearing, congratulating her. The voice mocks that her vice at least put up a decent fight. Alara smiles. She's glad the rat finally crawled out of his hole. The one man she wants to butcher more than anyone. Lord Percival asks her if she enjoyed the little spectacle he staged for her. Alara promises him his death won't be peaceful, but he just looks satisfied. Percival draws his blade, saying that's exactly the fire he wanted to see. A massive vortex of energy erupts between them. Alara finally lets loose, invoking the true dance of the void. Meanwhile, a communication stone tries to reach Alara, but it's dead air. Our hero won't be able to warn her about the trap in time. A voice cuts through the silence, saying she's out of reach. Suddenly, Cashin is surrounded by a whole squad of elite mercenaries. The voice explains that she's trapped deep inside a dungeon, where external magic signals can't penetrate. The mastermind behind the chaos smiles, asking if Cashin likes the cave since it feels just like the ancient martial realms. He asks if Cashin agrees. Sir Cashin demands to know how he knows her location. The man just chuckles, "Ask nicely, and maybe I'll tell you my secrets." The mercenary taunts him, and that's all the proof Cashin needs. This guy definitely isn't here to help. Not that it matters. Cashin can make anyone talk. Feeling the sheer energy radiating from him, the man gets visibly excited. You can practically feel the martial resonance vibrating in the air. But wait, he's got a trick too. A massive arcane symbol begins glowing on the floor. Arthur recognizes it instantly, a snare. But this isn't like the ones from the ancient realm. This is twisted with dark alchemy and magecraft. It's the activation of the celestial golden seal. The knights surrounding him don't hesitate. They charge in for the kill. Our hero doesn't flinch at the magical trickery, but something's off. His gut is screaming. The first enemy lunges, blade whistling toward his throat. Suddenly, Arthur's body feels like lead. Every movement is a struggle. He throws a heavy punch, but the knight catches it effortlessly on his steel blade. He's cut off. his inner aura completely locked. Two more assassins spot the opening and dive in to finish him. Arthur raises his shield just in time. But that one blow, it nearly shatters his magical barrier like thin glass. There's a familiar stench to these people. They've been to the ancient realm. Lord Godfrey just laughs at the shock written all over Arthur's face. Here's the trick. The seal suppresses the target and strips their energy, pumping it straight into the subordinates. Doesn't matter how strong you are. Since your own power is being used to buff Godfrey's goons, your strength becomes your biggest weakness. Honestly, Arthur is bored of the monologuing. Enough barking, he says. Come get some. It's time. He's going to make sure they never forget the name of the sovereign of blades. See, a trap formation is basically a pocket dimension. A cage designed to hold elements or ancient spells. Legends say a master strategist once used this very technique to summon storms and wipe out entire legions in seconds. Godfrey worships that man like a god. He spent his life mastering these snares. Within this circle, he thinks he's invincible, a true deity. At least, that was the plan. A sword whistles through the air and passes right through Arthur like he's made of mist. Blink and you'll miss it. He's already gone. Arthur figured it out. The seal's foundation is built entirely on metal elements. Two more knights leap in for a strike. Nothing but air. Arthur just sighs. Hold on, he mutters. It's almost over. Godfrey is panicking. Arthur used a paralysis strike on his men. Inside the seal, that should be physically impossible. Arthur has one question. He needs to know if they're part of the Shadow Coven, but they look completely clueless. That's because they never set foot in the ancient realm. Their swordplay, amateur hour, totally sloppy. And their energy, it's hollow. There's no celestial flow between them, no true refinement. Godfrey finds Arthur incredibly annoying, but he bites. Fine. His men weren't born into war, they were manufactured into martial artists. A true master could pull that off, but Godfrey, not a chance. This reeks of low-tier sorcery. Only dark magic could make this mess work. Arthur doesn't care if it's cult magic or steel, it won't save them. Godfrey reveals his secret. He used beggars and street trash to build his army. It worked like a charm, apparently. Human sacrifices were used to fuel the circle. Absolute madness. Arthur actually smiles. Disgusting. But it's exactly the kind of filth he expects from the Shadow Coven. Godfrey is trembling now. When Arthur deals with monsters like this, he never gets tired of breaking them. Talk time's over. The hunt is on. Godfrey is shaken to his core, swearing he'll finish Arthur as his men lunge forward again. Now they're glowing, fueled by Arthur's own stolen aura. Feeling brave, Arthur asks, using my own power to fight me. He takes one step, just one. Boom! The golden circle flashes a brilliant, icy blue. Godfrey has no idea what's happening. Screams of pure agony. It looks like they're burning alive. Fire melts metal, every single time. Simple logic, really. Since the trap was based on the metal element, Arthur just modified the recipe. Godfrey is losing his mind. How could he know? Arthur just shrugs. Back in the ancient realm, he studied this stuff as a hobby. Imagine that. Godfrey gave his entire life to this art. To Arthur, it was just something to do on a rainy Sunday. The realization hits Godfrey like a truck. He's reached his limit. Smart people are great at books, but this is the end. The trap is reversing. It's draining Godfrey's own life force now. He used lives as fuel, now he's the fuel. Fair trade. But before the end, Arthur needs answers. What happened to Lady Jane? In his mind, he sees her, cold and lifeless. Arthur was always a ghost, a loner, until he met her. When things got dark, when the memories of the other world haunted him, she was the one who stayed. She didn't abandon him. He felt seen, truly loved. Jane was there, but this meeting, it was cursed. Get up, Jane, he tells her. Don't lose like this. She's at her limit. But then, she rises, that fire in her eyes, it hasn't flickered out yet. She lunges for one last strike. Arthur activates his reflection shield. The impact is deafening as they collide. Jane is thrown back, skidding across the stone. She's exhausted. Even her shadow technique has completely deactivated. She stares at him, stunned. She never knew he was this powerful. But then again, she's given every single thing she had left. Lady Alara narrows her eyes, offering one final question. Lord Valerius just shrugs, totally fine with answering for once. She just needs to know. Why? Why slaughter her knights like that? Valerius is honestly just bored by the whole topic. She's literally shaking with rage now. He's dodged the truth for too long, and Alara demands a real answer. He thinks for a second, then drops it. They were weak. To him, crushing the weak is just natural instinct. She was a fool to expect a normal conversation with this monster. Through the tears, she readies her sword for the end. She strikes white lightning. In a literal heartbeat, they're face to face. Steel clashes against steel with a deafening ring. The impact, absolutely monstrous. Elsewhere, Arthur is pacing, checking his magic relay crystal. The report finally arrives. It's confirmed. Valerius is a zealot of the ancient war god. The spy's mind broke under torture, but the signal is locked 450 meters away. He remembers Valerius's rifting skill. He's got a plan. Arthur could reach her in 20 minutes, but he stops. Why is he even this worried? She's just a political ally, nothing more. In the Citadel, people like her die every single day. But then, it hits him, that dinner invitation, the way she smiled, every moment they've spent together. It was all, actually nice, just the two of them. He starts laughing to himself at the sheer absurdity. Is he going crazy? He was the guy who only cared about his own skin and his little sister's safety. But there's someone else in his life now. Arthur charges into the night, praying she can hold on.